Good morning, welcome everyone. Bore da aelodau, croeso I gyfarfod awdurdod Parc Cenedlaethol. Croeso
So welcome everyone to the
aelod o'i
National
grybwyll
Park and
sydd
also any
yn
members
gwylio.
of the public who may be viewing.
That was quite weird because I had the interpretation in my ear as I was saying it, so thank you. As you are aware, we have translation, so hopefully everybody's able to access that. Good to see you all. As you know, we're unable to meet in the, or for those online, we're unable to meet in the green room as it has been demolished and is being replaced. So hence why our meeting is online. Hopefully you'll be able to see all the names of the people, all the councillors and Welsh Government appointees that are on the screen. And I'll introduce the officers as and when we come to the reports and agenda items. With no further ado, just to say that we've got quite a long agenda, as you're aware, this morning, with many reports. So I'd like to try and keep questions and comments succinct, please. And if somebody has made a comment or asked a question, please let's not repeat it. And I'd like, if possible, please, to keep the cameras on. It's really nice to have faces rather than a blank screen in front of me, otherwise I feel like I'm talking to nobody. And please use the hand function if you wish to make a comment or ask a question. Good, thank you. First agenda item, to receive apologies for absence. Have we had any, please?
Yes, Chair. We've had apologies from Mrs. Julie James, Councillor Dr. Simon Hancock, and Councillor Angie Tinley has also informed us that she will be a little bit late.
Oh, I thought she was online, but there we are. She's obviously sort of online ready. Have we got any disclosures of interest by members or officers in respect of any items of business that we're going to be discussing this morning? Councillor Thomas, Vanessa Thomas, please.
It's item 1125, page 235, the Creswell Quay Conservation Area. So it's within my ward, and I'm a member and deacon at Pisgah Chapel, also within the conservation area. So it's just a personal interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Plummer, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just personal, not prejudicial, for the record. Member of NRW Board, Chair of its Protected Areas Committee, which has sort of relevance to various of policy matters and interactions. And I'm a Welsh Government Senior Independent Member for Public Appointments, and we have a number of forthcoming end of terms of office, so it may be a topic for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosie. Any others? Oh, Councillor Bethan Price, please.
Just a personal interest on item 14, the clarification statement of potential implementation of Article 4 regarding caravan and camping site. I have a small campsite, but it's got a license and everything. So just a personal interest, really.
Thank you.
And my partner's got a camping site as well.
Yeah, no, thank you, Bethan. Any others? I don't think so. No. Is that's a legacy hand? There we are. Okay. Item 3 then, to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of February. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to read those. And do I have any items to raise that are not going to be discussed later on or in the action log that you want to raise before we? I'm quite happy to move those. Just wonder if I have a seconder. Councillor Sam Skerne-Blackhall. Second, is that Sam?
Yes, Chair, thank you.
Sorry, Madeline, I missed you. Just getting used to being on screen again. Did you have a comment to make on them, or was that for seconding?
Very minor correction, but then to second, Chair. Just to say I've been upgraded to becoming councillor, Havarda.
Yes, I saw that.
on yes. Page minute 3 about the last minutes. So just to correct the title there, and to just ask about the comment on again on that minute, page 2. It says that we authenticated those minutes. Is that a usual term, or do we not usually just approve them? I wasn't sure what the difference was. So just a question there, really.
Thank you. Caroline Llewellyn, our Democratic Services Manager, please.
So thank you, Chair. So you're quite correct that normally we would sign minutes if we were in person, but because we're online, because this morning it isn't physically possible for the Chair to sign the minutes, we record that she authenticates them, and then at some future point when we are able to meet in person, we will bring a copy of those authenticated minutes and ask her to countersign them. So that's the same principle applies to all other committees as well as the authority while we are online. That's just the
Brilliant.
explanation for the term. Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well spotted. Well spotted, Madeline, as well. So thank you for that. So we've had a proposer for myself, seconded by Sam. All those in favour that the minutes are a true record, please raise your hands. Gwyn's done his manually. Is there anybody against?
I wasn't present, Chair, so I'll abstain.
So abstain. Okay. So with any other abstentions? Just the one. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the action log on page 11. Anybody got any questions? Oh, Tegrin, our Chief Executive, Tegrin Jones, please.
Couple o bethach.
Just a couple of points. Just apologies, there are some gaps there. So if I can just give you a bit of a quick update. The first one, we are now coming very close to the process of reviewing salaries and grades. So once that's completed, we will do a bit of a review on that and have a discussion on it. There has been some discussion in the employer forum recently on that point. But we are within a week or two, I believe, of dealing with every appeal. So that's fine. In terms of 982, officer isn't here, but written, this will be in English.
Pembrokeshire County Council, the National Park Authority, Planed and the Port of Milford Haven met to discuss the need for a more detailed destination management plan, action plan, and to agree terms of reference of the associated strategic advisory board. Each organisation present agreed to take the lead on key themes. I think ours is regenerative tourism, contained in the DMP with Pierre leading on regenerative tourism. The strategic advisory board is due to meet in April, and any associated actions will be presented to the Visit Pembrokeshire board for agreement in due course. Since that is being set up, I just wonder whether, because this action keeps appearing, whether we just find a different way of reporting on Visit Pembrokeshire rather than keeping that action. Yr un nesa wedyn, wneud Catrin falle sôn.
And the next one, and possibly Catrin will actually talk about the finance system. And then the last one from me, member travel claims for electric vehicles. And I think the HMRC guidance states that the claims are the same or the rates are the same. But people need to send evidence of it because there is no payment for petrol. So I haven't had a response to that, but I will get a response to that to ensure that everything is in place in terms of what we need to do on that point.
Rosie, please.
Just a couple of points, and I think I've followed what Tegrin said on Gymraeg, although it's testing me a bit. And I raised with Caroline, I think as a matter of principle, it'd be useful to make sure that we don't have blank progress fields, so we have something in them for future. And I think there are a couple like 1032 which can be closed off. And I think Tegrin's picked up the other points, which again, Caroline Blesser has picked up. I exchanged with her. Thank you, Chair.
Good, thank you. Yes, and if they're completed, they may as well be taken off. So I absolutely agree. Dr. Heath Davis, please.
Thank you, Di. 2 points from me. The first one is just in response to Tegrin's report. So point 982 on James' report, the action point relates to measures. So I think you've made the point of how we actually report and feedback in the future. So I think that was one of the concerns. So what are the aims? What are the measures? And I think that's what we need to see at this level. So that gap then is sorted. And I think the reporting will follow on quite nicely from there. And then the second one from me was 01036 and the Welsh language assessment and the impact. There is a report there, but it's not clear to me at the moment whether there's an action point for us to come back to me on it. And I don't know whether I'm waiting for anything there or not. The work has been done, obviously, but I don't know whether I've seen the final draft. So perhaps you could follow up on that, Tegrin. Yes, I'll have a conversation with you on that and I'll come back to you on that. Great, thank you very much.
Right, thank you. Any other comments on the action log before we move on? No, good. Okay, thank you. I should have said at the start that we have a workshop afterwards, planning on sort of stopping probably about 11:15, 11:30 for a short break, and then depending on how we get on, about 1 o'clock for lunch. Ideally, it would be nice if we could be finished by then, but I'll let you make that decision. My chair's announcements. Good, right. I have attended the CJC meeting last week. In fact, they were discussing the corporate plan 23-28, and they made an amendment about net zero, actually, which was quite interesting. The amendment was that they needed to ensure balance and proportionality towards achieving net zero without impacting the local economy and impoverishment, although it does remain committed to the net zero agenda. And we also discussed the general progress on the South West Wales Corporate Joint Committee. I also attended the WLDA Rural Forum and we discussed the draft manifesto. I don't know if anybody knows Professor Mike Woods, but he presented on that. And there was discussions on the Gwynedd and Eryri Sustainable Economy Plan till 2035. Good discussion on that. Also met with Hugh Rees of HDR Consulting, along with Simon Pickering and Geraint Evans. This is a Welsh Government project on reviewing arrangements for evaluating NPA members in Welsh MPAs and see if and how these could be improved. And this was in line with the Audit Wales recommendation, accountability framework for all members. And those of us that attended the People's Services last week, we did a bit about that. So if anybody's interested, I've got some more information on that. There's 3 stages. We're just on stage 1. I had a lovely time actually. Attended the Tenby Chamber of Trade business breakfast at Harbour Tap Room. Thanks to Councillor Samska and Blackhall for the invitation. It was to allow business students at Greenhill School could engage with local businesses and organisations to gain valuable insight into the world of work. And it was a pleasure, absolute pleasure, to have met them all and had a great morning. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend the launch of the Senedd learning resources for the designated landscapes of Wales, which is Tirlun. Hope I've pronounced that properly. Pembrokeshire Coast National Park actually is the project lead, and Graham Peake is who's running that. But I hear it went well, so well done to all the team. And if anybody's got any questions, I'm sure Tegrin can, because I think you presented there at the Senedd, didn't you? So great project and a really good resource. I also want to wish Daisy and the team at Carew Castle the very best of luck, and I'm sure that you join me in that at the Visit Wales Awards on or tomorrow evening actually, one which I'm going as well. It's the National Tourism Awards for Wales 25, and it's under the best attraction category. So everybody please keep their fingers crossed. If you want to see who they're up against, it's on the Visit Wales website, but I'm very much keeping everything crossed for them. And also somebody may know a chap called Ozzy. His proper name though is Owen Duffy, and I'd like to congratulate him on 40 years in Pembrokeshire Coast National Park. Warden team is the current longest serving member of staff, so quite a character. I met him when we met Prince Charles, and it was an absolute pleasure. So congratulations, and what a sort of show of how good Pembrokeshire Coast National Park is in keeping their staff members, for somebody to stay there for 40 years. So no, well done to him, and I hope he gets a bit of cake and a bit of a clap or something. So although we can't be with him in the building, so congratulations to him. We've only got the translation till lunchtime as well, just in case I hadn't mentioned that. So that's my chair's announcements. So if there's any questions on any of those, please don't hesitate to ask me privately after. Rachel.
Sorry, do you mind if I speak two things in Dai that are chairs type things? It'll be very quick.
Oh yes, please do.
Diolch. Yr un gynta, just i ddweud...
Thank you. So the first thing, just to say that myself and Tegrin will be attending a national conference for chairs, and that's for the UK then in the Peak District. So if anyone wishes to speak to us before we go, let us know. And then secondly, the papers of the audit committee are not on today's agenda. So I just wanted to quickly mention our internal auditors are looking for ideas for themes for future audit. So members of the audit committee have had an email asking for ideas, but I just wanted to ask every member whether there's anything that you'd like the auditors to take a look at over the coming year or two, then please let me know via email. Thank you. So I'm collecting ideas, and that's it. Thank you, Di.
Thanks, Rachel. Good. We will move on to the report section. So on page, what page do they start? 13, we've got the Operational Review Committee. We're just receiving the reports. Has anybody got any comments? No? Okay. And the People Services Committee, we've actually had a subsequent one since, but this is for the 15th of January. Dr. Harvard, please.
Sorry, Di, just to point out agenda item 6, that the DM committee minutes were approved at our last meeting and are available. So we have already received the report for DMC as well. Thank you.
Brilliant, thanks. Sorry, Councillor Maureen Bowen, I skipped you. Apologies. Would you like to say something?
Yes, thank you, Di, and you are forgiven. Now this could be just me, but when the colleagues are speaking Welsh, the translation's coming up to me like double Dutch. It's I don't think they know all the English for some of the Welsh words that are being spoken, and they are just making up some sort of gibberish. Has anybody else noticed that?
No, I haven't had a problem before, but I'm just going to bring in Georgia, please.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Maureen. I believe you might be using the transcription service rather than the simultaneous translation service.
Right.
So if you go in, have a look at the ribbon on the top of your screen, there should be 3 dots with the word more underneath it. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Click on there. Under there should be an option for language and speech.
No, I've got meeting info, devices, video effects, and captions. That's for,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Are you on a Mac device by any chance?
Yes.
Okay. Caroline, while I'm taking minutes, would you mind contacting Maureen separately just to walk you through how to do that, if that's all right?
Just as a pointer, Georgia, Lynwen suggested I try going through a different browser, so not through Safari, and that has made the difference. Though previously I haven't got into PCMPA on that, but it's worked this time.
I'm hoping Caroline might be able to show that to Maureen if you could. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
All right. I think we have an excellent translator. I hopefully we'll get that sorted for you, Maureen. Right, where were we? We were doing people services. Yes. Were there any anything to raise on the 15th of January? People services. Otherwise, we'll say that we've noted that and received that. Rachel, please.
Yeah, diolch Dai. Dim ond I ofyn yn gyflym.
Yes, thank you, Di. Just to quickly ask about the pay and grading, because Tegrin has mentioned it, but just wanted to ask the question, when will the evaluation and when we expect to receive the report? Because it takes time to do the evaluation and then write a report. So just the timing on that, please. And perhaps it could be a log action point possibly, but just wanted to raise that as a question, please. Can I come back on you on that, because I know that Joy's away this week and I would like to speak to her, because there are lots of other things happening where we will be prioritizing that. I want to get it out of the way, to be honest. Yes, exactly. We don't want it to just carry on and on. There we are. Thank you.
Diolch, Rachel. Councillor Mike James, please.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd.
Thank you, Chair.
Just
for information regarding the People's Committee, I attended a meeting on Monday with the Volunteer Forum, and I met a number of volunteers, and I have to say that I learnt lots of things about volunteers and volunteering. But just for information to you all, I was in that meeting and things are moving forward extremely well. Thank you.
Diolch, Mike. Thank you for that. Rachel, did you want to come back in again? Or is that a legacy hand? Brilliant. Thank you. And actually, I after we had our pre-meeting, Tegrin, I didn't think we'd had any youth committee meetings recently or any minutes. I just wanted to know if that's still going on. Thank you. Georgia, perhaps.
Thank you, Chair. So I have spoken to Maisie very recently, who coordinates all of the meetings, and she said that the meetings are taking a different form just as they're adapting to the needs of the youth rangers. And she's looking now to develop more of a quarterly newsletter to share with you all, with images and sort of notes of their various activities and meetings. So she's just in the process of fine-lining that and fine-tuning it, and I will provide you an update when she comes to a bit more of a conclusion on it.
That's brilliant. It's something that obviously we'd like to keep engaged, and always enjoy reading their what they've been up to and their reports. So thank you for that. Okay, have we got right? We're going to go to the agenda proper. So report number 725, the partnership plan. Which is the seek authority approval for a final National Park Partnership Plan 2025-29, which was formerly the management plan, and associated impact assessments. And I'd like to invite the management plan and marine officer, Michelle Regulus, to present, please. Over to you, Michelle.
Thank you very much, Chair. Bore da, good morning, everyone. Yes, and thank you for that introduction. I was going to say at the outset that the partnership plan is arose by any other name. It's the National Park Management Plan in statute, which is a 5-year plan that comes to us as a requirement of the Environment Act in 1995. But partnership plan is a better name for it, to be honest. So at the authority meeting last June, members considered a report of consultation on special qualities survey that had taken place in the spring of last year. And members also agreed a consultation draft partnership plan together with impact assessments and the other associated consultation materials, mapping and so forth. And I can now update you on what's been happening since. So the consultation partnership plan went out in the autumn for 8 weeks, thanks to all the staff who helped promote the consultation at the county show, local shows and so on. We had 30 responses, which doesn't sound like much, but when you disinterred them, there were about sort of 400 distinct representations totaling 30,000 words, and from a very good spread of individuals and organisations, so lots of different viewpoints, and it was all very constructive. And there's a summary, a very short summary of the consultation at Annex 1 to this report today. What changes have been made to the partnership plan as a result of the consultation then? I'll go through these more or less in running order, and I'll try and keep it as brief as I can. Teams from Welsh Government's Climate Change and Rural Affairs Department responded. As part of their response, they offered the possibility of a forward from the Cabinet Secretary for Climate Change and Rural Affairs, the Deputy First Minister. And now that officials in Welsh Government have had sight of this version of the plan, they're able to sort of take that further forward. A draft forward has been sent to the Deputy First Minister and will hopefully be approved in due course for inclusion in the final plan. People wanted to get a better idea of the significance of the National Park, so we've added a bit of text on what makes the National Park important on the UK and on the world stage. A vision statement. People asked for a clearer vision of what the National Park might look like. I've heard a lovely quote to the effect that the trouble with objectives is that you're constantly working towards what you used to want. But hopefully we're not going to fall into that trap, and hopefully the vision text we've added will remain relevant for a few years at least. People asked for a timeline to describe the evolution of the Pembrokeshire Coast landscape. So we've done a little run through of the last 500 million years, which will perhaps encourage us to take a longer view forwards as well. And that was an amazing exercise for me, because my sort of sense of history and time is terrible. So it's very useful for me personally to do that. Special qualities, a few changes here. Some of which, I mean, you would have seen the way things were going, I think, last June in the report there on the special qualities survey. Essentially, we've given some of the original, or should I say current special qualities, more of a profile in their own right. So we've got qualities like Welsh language and Pembrokeshire dialects, this sensory and sort of experienced environment, things like big uncluttered horizons, natural soundscapes. All those things I think come out a bit better now. And we've made some changes to the wording as well, which maybe give the list more of a sort of contemporary feel. Subject to approval today, that list of special qualities will become a material consideration when the authority is determining planning applications pending the next LDP. Themes, everything is still organised around our 4 corporate themes. So those are the 4 C's. We've got conservation, connection, which is cultural heritage, enjoyment, understanding, effectively, climate and natural resources, and communities. People asked for more clarity about what connection meant. So that's been renamed as cultural heritage and connection. We've also added a short introduction to each of those 4 themes, just to explain what each of them is about and also what the links are between them. It's very difficult to separate the themes, especially community. And I was thinking this morning, in some ways it makes as much sense as trying to take the veins out of a piece of marble. But there are advantages in having these themes. Number one is that it makes the plan more digestible. You can find what you want more quickly, hopefully. And it also helps preserve that kind of fidelity with park purposes and with the authority's duty. And of course, those themes read across into our corporate planning framework as well. Under each theme, we've added 1 or 2 mission statements. These are really just one-liners about the intended direction of travel, and they are underpinned by a series of what we've called results. The results are sort of key areas of work and endeavour that help define the mission in terms of what people might expect to be done and delivered in their own part of the park. State of the park section. Okay, so this was the section that reports on the condition of all the different attributes of the national park, the state of wildlife, scheduled monuments, rights of way network, etc., etc., and also the challenges. We've done quite a lot of data updates, and also we've reduced the amount of content, and we've tied information more directly to the 4 themes. So instead of all that massive data being in a standalone section and rather impenetrable as it was in the consultation draft, we've spread things out and made it more accessible, I hope. Policies. Amazingly, there have been no really substantive changes to policy from the consultation draft, but people did want more transparency about how the effectiveness of policy was going to be judged. So we've set out a monitoring framework for each policy and sort of set down who is going to do that monitoring. It's not always the authority. In fact, probably usually other people rather than the authority. And there are obviously links back here from here to the authority's performance management system. So we can use that system to monitor the plan, even when the outcomes aren't necessarily our responsibility. Actions. Each policy has a work stream associated with it, a list of actions. We've made those actions more specific. They've been tightened up in terms of results and the who, what, when, and particularly in terms of who leads on those actions and who is a sort of a key supporter of those actions. Incidentally, I've commented in the covering report that the action references don't always run consecutively. This was a bit of sleight of hand to keep consistency between the first and final versions of the impact assessment. So just so we could keep track of things, basically. And what I'll do is restore consecutive numbering before we go to publish, and then I'll make a little conversion table between the initial and final references, just to keep a sort of audit trail for posterity. Impact assessments. The plan is subject to a number of impact assessments in law: Welsh language assessment, habitat regulations assessment, sustainability appraisal, equalities impact assessment, and wellbeing of future generations assessment. Maya Thomas and Phil Barlow took on all bar one of those. So a huge thanks extended to them from me for a lot of work. And overwhelmingly, respondents were in agreement with the impact assessments in terms of the approach, the content, the conclusions. And we also received a number of data updates and clarifications on those, which are gratefully received, but they haven't affected the conclusions of the assessments. Partnership, and I'm coming to a close now. A major thing to emerge from the consultation was that if this is a partnership plan, what or who are the partnership? Can that partnership be better defined and established early on so as to help with delivery of the plan and also to help with the next plan review? As an organisation, the authority has a massive surface area in terms of who we interact and work with. Statutory bodies, business interests, charities, voluntary groups, communities of geography or interest, other designated landscapes, I mean, the list goes on. And also, of course, individuals who may or may not be part of an organised group. So we got as many representatives of those as we could at fairly short notice for a meeting in January, just as an initial a way to feel forward how we proceed with the partnership. 2 main messages came out of that. Firstly, there's lots of effective partnerships and groups out there that contribute to national park purposes, even if that's not their main motivation. And those groups are going to continue to be essential to plan delivery and monitoring. So I'm thinking of groups like the Public Services Board, Pembrokeshire Nature Partnership, Nutrient Management Boards, the Local Access Forum, and so on. The second message from that meeting was that there's currently an unfilled role for a sort of overarching partnership or forum. So a kind of group of groups that is there specifically to look from enough altitude at the principles and reality of the national park, as well as take an overview of existing partnerships over the longer term. Another sort of function, I think, or advantage of having such an overarching group is that in some cases you have relevant stakeholders that aren't statutory or invited members of an existing group. So if there's a forum such as this, they can nevertheless express a view on a topic, which can then be sort of taken into account. There's no definitive list of members for this group yet, and we're looking for delegated authority today to develop this. But of course, it needs to be an inclusive group, and I think it can be fairly loose fit, have an adaptive membership. So what's next? Subject, of course, to approval of the recommendations today, we will go ahead with publication. We'll continue to develop and convene the partnership group in terms of membership, terms of reference and all that sort of thing. We'll set up impact monitoring reporting based on what's in the plan with a view to being able to generate annual progress reports, which is a key thing that's mentioned in the Natural Resources Wales management planning guidance, which came out last year in draft. And then last but not least, we will, via the usual channels and procedures, look at those specific project areas that come out of the plan. So where are the greatest risks and challenges? What's the fit with resourcing? And it's used, the plan can be quite useful, has been used successfully to support bids internal and externally. So I won't say any more at this point. Thank you for your time, and through the chair, very happy to try and answer any queries if you have any before you can consider the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you for the very comprehensive run through and report and the plan itself. And I'm mindful that you're probably just the orchestrator, but there's a huge amount of other people within the authority that have pulled everything in for this. So I'm grateful to the whole team and anybody who's been involved in this. So members, Councillor Mike James, you have a comment, please, or a question?
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd.
Thank you, Chair.
Diolch i Michelle
and thank you to Michelle for all of the hard work and what we've listened to this morning. And I have to say that you have spoken very clearly, and I'm sure that you know full well what's going on. But I would just like to ask if you would be so kind regarding language. Oh, I'm just looking for it now. I had it a moment ago. Language and dialect. If we could know a little bit more about that, please. And because I understand the dialects around the county, they do differ. So I don't know whether you've got a little bit more information about that initially. And then I thought about a shoreline management plan. I know that the LDP is coming up with us soon. But the shoreline management plan, and how does that fall in with the climate change and planning? Because on a number of occasions, we've taken a look at the plan. I know, for example, that the shoreline management plan cannot be up to 100 years, but we have to think about it when it comes to planning. Shall I leave it there for now, if you'd be so kind as to chair? Is that okay? And thank you once more, Michelle.
Diolch, Mike. Over to you, Michelle.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I'll have a crack at those, certainly. In terms of language and dialects, well, we've got English and Welsh, but it's not as straightforward as that, because there are English dialects in the south of the county particularly, and Welsh dialect in the north of the county. I mean, my knowledge doesn't extend much further than that. There's a bit more information, I think, in the partnership plan and in the Appendix B to the sustainability appraisal. So I'll move on to the shoreline management plan, and I'm sure on both of these topics there are going to be other people in the room who may be able to add more to what I'm saying. So we have two shoreline management plans that cover the national park. And they basically set out management prescriptions in terms of hold the line, which is a sort of, active intervention to protect property and people, and then a sort of and then varying responses through to a managed retreat of do nothing. So those are taken into account through the planning service, and I'll perhaps I'll perhaps hand over in case anyone else wants to come in there. But we have identified climate change risk areas through the LDP, and there is provision made for migration of habitation settlements inland for those areas of the coast which are deemed to be indefensible, I guess. I'll close there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'm not sure whether Emma or Tegrin wants. Emma, did you want to come in on that point, particularly Emma Gladstone?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to say, with regard to the shoreline management plans, we do have 2 adopted shoreline management plans that cover the national park, as Michelle covered. There's the first epoch, so they're sort of split into 3 epoch areas or timelines. The first epoch then runs up until 2025, so we are about to enter then that second epoch, or sort of time phrase in those, and you know, we take account of those obviously, and they inform local development plan policy on where suitable to build, and we have shoreline management areas in the plan as well. So they will be updated, you know, through a revision to LDP, but at the moment there's no change there, and the shoreline management plans as adopted remain. I think there may be some plans now to carry out some sort of updates to those, and we can keep members informed of any updates. Thank you.
Thank you. Tegrin, did you want to come in on that point?
Yn hollol onest, y pwynt bach cynt i wrth Mike am iaith a
which you made about language and dialect. I think how they are included in the specific characteristics, it allows us to take steps then to protect. And there is a plan with Heneb, the archaeological site of things, in order to protect names, for example. And quite a lot of work has been done on this, and to have some sort of a framework in order to work with partners such as the Menter Iaith. And we have a specialist, for example, on dialects in the south, Schofield. So he is creating a framework, and the hope being that will be kept then and maintained by us and also by others.
Is that all right, Mike?
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Yeah, diolch.
Yes, thank you.
Dr. Plummer, please.
Thanks, Chair. Just a few points. Firstly, can I, as you said, commend Michelle, Emma, Maya and the team on this. It's a significant chunk of work and it's core underpinning to what we do. And it's good to see that it's taken account of the updated guidance for NRW, albeit that was a draft during the time this was produced. It's given us a good framework for the future. I note that one of the recommendations today is we delegate scope for further changes, including sort of non-material tweaks and corrections to officers. I've offered a number of changes, a number of sort of suggestions and amendments to Michelle already offline, and but I timed out on doing more. I'm obviously happy to do so. We had a really enormous chunk of papers for today's meeting, so as an aside, can we also thank the governance team for getting those together? Because my heck, it was a huge task. I noticed that the special qualities will form a material consideration, and I just wonder whether that's something, Sarah, that we might flag to Charles and get sort of flagged in the solicitor's guidance to us for DM. It just feels like appropriate moment to draw our attention to it. And aside from that, I very much welcome this, and I'd be very happy to move all 3 of the recommendations, Chair.
Thank you, Rosie. I'm just going to bring in Sarah Morris, who is our Director of Place and Engagement, to comment. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Plummer. I think that's a really helpful suggestion, and we'll pick it up in the next DM meeting. Just to make members aware, Michelle did actually do a workshop with DM officers specifically on special qualities as part of the development of the final version that's before you today. So they have been involved in that process as well. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Rachel, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And just echoing the comments made by others, so you're interested, I won't go over them again, but it's so well written, Michelle. It's excellent. It's so clear. Fantastic job. And I can see you've taken on board not just our comments, but other people's comments, and that in itself is difficult to do. So thank you for that. Just a couple of comments or questions for me and linked to the recommendations as well. It comes across, I think, sums up a lot in the foreword for me. When you read the foreword, I just think, oh my gosh. And I slightly worry, it's a positive and a negative all in one in a way. Are we taking on the world's problems? I'll put it that way. That to the extent you almost have to remind yourself by the time you get to section 2 of what the remit is of the national park and why we were set up. So I'm saying it a bit in jest, but it is a kind of serious comment, and it links then to what you said, Michelle, about the need for a group, and that we're going to try and corral this and almost monitor all of these other bodies. I'm hearing it that way. So there's a slight note of caution for me there. I can see the need for the group, but I just want to appeal or say it'd be interesting to see how it goes in that regard and what our role is in this. You know, to what extent are we responsible for everything climate change, the whole decline in biodiversity, the state of health and poverty, you know? And you can read it that way now that we've gone for the title as well as a partnership plan, you know? So I just read it sometimes and think, wow, yeah, so are we the monitoring body? Or are we a coordination body? Are we really going to get all of these people galvanized to these world problems? So yeah, it's a real positive that we're taking that stance, but wow, it's a heck of a challenge. So I would just put that note of caution wherever we go. I think what we are doing and what we're able to do, please, and just stick with that. I think we struggle a bit sometimes with our purpose and our priorities. So just to bear that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Did you want to come back at all, Michelle, on that?
Yes, I can do very briefly. Thank you very much. Yeah, team effort in terms of putting this together. So yeah, in terms of the sort of scope of the thing, I think in a way you have to take a wide angle view before narrowing back, certainly in terms of what we do as an organization. So I think it's almost a question of getting to the heart of the problem and then getting away from it again to some extent. And as always, you know, reminding ourselves of what park purposes are and our specific statutory remits, which aren't actually many in doing that. And I think we've always been very successful in working with and through other organisations. The sort of the state of the park or various aspects of state of the park suggest that, you know, all this effort is necessary but not sufficient in some areas, and therefore if this sort of emboldens us to scale up action or help others scale up action, then that's great. I wouldn't like to think that we sort of we fritter our energies on monitoring. I think if we can cleverly leverage the work and monitoring that other people are doing, you know, think of us as a spider at the center of a web, perhaps, just in terms of reporting on what is relevant to us as an authority looking after a national park. Yeah, I won't say any more. I hope that is some reassurance. Thank you.
Diolch, Michelle. Tegwyn, did you want to come in on that particular point? And then if Rachel wants to come back, I'll ask her.
Yeah, just point, mae'n bwynt diddorol ac mae'n
Yeah,
ymangos
it's an interesting point, and it appears, and we've had quite an interesting discussion with our internal auditors on this and what they measure, etc. Simply, and perhaps this is too simple, but I look at the partnership plan as a park plan. It's just as relevant to us as it is to other bodies and other public bodies such as Pembrokeshire Council and NRW, all public bodies. And there's a duty as a result of Condition 62 of the Environment Act for them to give that consideration But I would like to see it's been strengthened, but that's an argument for us over the coming years. The element for us is our corporate plan. So our corporate plan should be part of the partnership plan, and that part which we are responsible for. But I think the point is important one. It's not our plan, it's the park plan, and we have a duty, as well as a raft of other organisations, to consider this as part of our work.
I'm going to quickly come back to say, yeah, I think it's important to recognise the challenge and the problem, and you've answered it fine. I think saying about the corporate plan, though, is key, Tegrin, and I think it's good for auditors, but everybody. Which bits are we actually accountable for here? What are we setting up to do and committed to within our £10 million budget? You know, so that's great. Thank you. So the corporate plan to come is an important bit of our cut of this overall partnership plan. So thank you for that clarification. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch, Rachel. Dr. Madeline Harvard, please.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Yes, I think that clarity is really important because when we set out on this, and congratulations, Michelle, for getting to this point. I know it's been a mammoth effort, not just the pulling together, but actually going out and talking to people. That's the critical thing about a partnership plan. People have to feel that they're part of it, and I know you've done that. But we do need to be very clear, and there are actions in this, great, but what's for us and what's not. And I think the point that Tegrin's just made is that our corporate plan is the delivery of the park plan. That perhaps needs to be clarified slightly in the park plan. You know, we will do this as very early on, I think, because otherwise it can certainly read that it's our vehicle and we've got to deliver everything, although the actions very clearly involve people. And now my second point is that I'm sure there are other people. You've talked about key partners, but there are lots of deliverers and lots of people who want to be involved and are involved who will not find their names. And that's always a concern, because people either feel a little bit slighted that they've not been included, like major UK organisations perhaps, or very local organisations who we know are delivering for us on a daily basis, you know, literally out on our beaches and keeping eyes on our sites and so on. So I think that it's a very difficult one always, because everybody wants to see themselves. But I do think that we need to highlight this is not exclusive in when we name partners, that actually others will become involved, may already be involved, and so on. So it's just to think of some clever ways of making sure that it is a truly inclusive plan for people and organisations, rather than, you know, another one to sit on the shelf sort of thing. I don't think it's that, because we have got some very clear actions and there will be monitoring. But I do think that there may be some who either feel that they've been left out, or we've no need to get involved then because it's already being done. And I know that we wouldn't want to take that approach. So perhaps if we can just think about some other way of presenting a graphic or something like that. I'm not sure, but perhaps a little bit of thought in that area would be helpful. Thanks very much. Diolch.
Thank you, Madeline. And I suppose a lot of this comes down to communications, doesn't it, with everybody across Pembrokeshire. So perhaps there might be a little piece of work on that as well. So I'm not sure whether that's being considered, but might be something worth considering. Did you want to come back, Michelle?
Yes, I can do briefly. Thank you, Chair. I did a brief presentation to our staff meeting a week or so ago, and I think the mangled sort of metaphor I used there was that this thing is a bit like an apple tree, and you know, we'll pick some of the apples off, and other organisations will pick others off, and then hopefully collectively we'll pick all of them off. and that will be the problem solved. Of course, it's not as simple as that, is it? But that's sort of how it works. You know, we have some assignments, and other people have other statutory responsibilities, which are incumbent on them. In terms of the detail on partners in the consultation, we probably went too far the other way. It was almost, you know, teetering over with the weight of the list of people. And of course, even those lists weren't complete. You know, I'm sure there were omissions there. In fact, I know there were. It's almost like a fractal sort of problem, isn't it? And the more you look, the more detail you're sort of omitting. I think there again, the corporate plan is probably our saviour, in the sense of that will detail, you know, who we're working with on a specific basis. And I think the kind of rationale, if there is one that we've used for who's included and kind of who isn't, I suppose, in this version of the partnership plan, is we've looked at sort of statutory responsibilities first and foremost, and then sort of, you know, the key, the next in lines, as it were. So it certainly doesn't pretend to be comprehensive, and I think your suggestion that of adding some text to that effect would be useful, so as not to sort of you know, upset anyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other comments? I do have a proposer from Dr. Rosie Plummer. If I have no further comments, do I have a second, please? Councillor Mike James, thank you. I'm presuming that's seconding. Yep. Great. Any other comments then before I go to the vote then, please? No. Thank you very much, Michelle. All those in favour? Actually, let's just go to the, just remind everybody on page 25 are the recommendations to note the summary report of consultation on the draft partnership plan, to approve the final text of the partnership plan, the equality impact assessment, the habitats regulations assessment, the sustainability appraisal and strategic environmental assessment, the wellbeing of future generations assessment, Welsh language assessment, and then grant delegated responsibility to officers to make any further changes agreed by members, include a forward from the Cabinet Secretary, make any minor changes required, typos, etc. Prepare the text for online publication.
Has Di frozen? I just wonder whether, do you want to take over, Rachel?
Yeah, I'm happy to do so. I was just going to wait if it was just a 2-minute job or whether it was actually going to be longer. But we're right in the middle of the vote, don't we? So let's do that. So I think Di was just there summarising the scope of what we're voting for. Is everybody happy with what we're voting for? I can see hands already up in the chat, so we'll go for that. Okay, has everybody a chance to put their hand up? I think Angie still isn't with us, is she? She said she was going to arrive late. She appears on the call. That's why I'm asking Caroline and Georgia. But otherwise, it looks unanimous. Could somebody just check with me on the hands there to make sure it is? Assuming that Angie isn't actually live on the call.
Yes, I believe Angie will be turning her camera on once she's officially with us.
Lovely. Okay, so we've got 12 for then. Let's just double check if you put your hands down. We've got 12 for. Have we got any against? No, that's fine. And no abstentions. Or perhaps we'll note Angie's abstentions because she's sort of online, but we think she's not quite here yet. Lovely. Thank you very much. So well done, Michelle and all the team. That's carried. And on to the next steps. We look forward to seeing how it's implemented in true partnership style, isn't it? Thank you very much indeed. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. And while Di's still trying to come online, I think she's still trying, I'll keep going. So we're on item 0825, which is the draft budget planning for the next year. And I believe it's Catherine. Through this, Catherine. Over to you.
Okay. Shemai, good morning all. I'm pleased, I think possibly is the word, to present our final draft budget for 25-26, and it's no surprise to everybody that we're presenting a deficit budget for the year. It is thankfully a lot less than we initially forecast back in December when we went through all the budget workshops. We have made some inroads in terms of reducing some of the costs, but also bringing in some earmarked reserves to meet some of the project costs. So I'll try not to be too long. I'll try to be very brief. Just moving through the budget, it is quite difficult to set budgets in this day and age. There's a lot of global uncertainty, which inevitably does impact us on a small in the small corner of Pembrokeshire, and changes in governments and legislation. It's a quite uncertain times really, and we know that by the impact of the Labour government, who's brought in obviously changes to the national insurance. Costs for employers, and that's added obviously impacted on our budget deficit as well. So there's another spring statement coming up later today, so we don't know what that may bring. I think the key message to bring in under this budget is that at the end of the day, we have an underlying trend of increasing deficits, assuming current funding levels. So we can see that really even from 25-26 and onwards, we're still forecasting increased deficits, assuming obviously the flatline budgets moving forward. So we have brought in there some actions that we do intend to do over the next 6 to 9 months in terms of looking at where there may be opportunities to increase income, or again to maximise efficiencies and reduce costs. Just to add that Richard Griffiths, our Section 151 officer, is present in the meeting if you do have any other questions. I think then really mainly is I'm asking members really, just to mention there's no changes to prudential indicators on our investment strategy, but I am recommending an increase in our general funds, in our general reserves, and that's to reflect really our increased costs of operating, and our general reserves level hasn't really changed for quite a few years, but given our increased operating costs, we need to now look at increasing that level so that as a buffer for the future. So really I'm asking really that the members approve the budget and approve the an increase in the financial reserves, and obviously to cover, approve the capital budget proposed in the paper.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you very much. Sorry, I got kicked out. Apologies. I'm presuming. Thank you, Rachel, for taking over, and I presume you completed the previous one. So apologies, I wasn't there to vote for it, but I would have if I had been. Good. Thank you for that. Do I have any questions for Catherine, please? Councillor Mike James, please.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And thank you, Catherine. The question I have is about the national insurance. If we get that back from government, or from London or the Treasury or wherever it could come from, how much money would that be? Would that mean things would be far improved? Would they look better? Well, if we do get funding for the increase in national insurance, it's around 130,000, and that will certainly decrease the deficit, yes. But currently, we take it that we will not get that money back because we aren't sure what the outcome will be.
Diolch.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Councillor Mike James. Dr. Madeline Harvard, please.
Diolch, thank you, Catherine. Can I just ask a question on the draft capital programme? don't have in there anywhere the Oriela Park master plan currently being discussed, and which I'm assuming is because it A is being discussed still, but B it's would only go forward if it was grant funded. So I'd sort of squared looking at it in that way, and then I thought, well, there are other things on the draft programme that perhaps might be dependent on that. So security upgrades of 20,000 for Oriela Park brought forward. You know, would that be involved? I know it has been, you know, brought forward anyway. And the decarbonisation and net zero, a lot of that activity is also grant funded. So I was just wondering, on our programme, what is the need and what is the want? We talk about maintenance of assets being a key part of our budget, and obviously we need to maintain the assets, but putting aside funds is clearly important and giving us this indication. But it's just if it covers everything, or if it covers everything plus what we'd like to. So perhaps just a bit of a talk through the capital programme, please. Thank you. Diolch yn fawr.
Over to you, Catrin. Thank you, Madeline.
Yeah, we haven't included anything particularly new in the capital budget because we're struggling to deliver on our existing obligations or budget. So I think we need to finish off what we have planned over the last few years before we move forward to doing a lot of big other new developments. In terms of Oriela Park, I think what is in there is needs because of security, etc. And my understanding of the master plan for Oriela Park is there wouldn't be any major structural changes to the building. It's more around interpretation and how the building is used. And I think that master plan work and designs are funded via the SLSP funding. And then once they get that in place, then the next steps will be looking at what we want to achieve for Oriela Park and what the future is, and then what funding. And I think that's a much longer timeline. So that doesn't need to be included in this particular capital programme. So I think this capital programme has been pretty much focused on what we an ongoing plan that we need to finish and deliver on before we start thinking of new plans.
Thank you. Are you happy with that, Madeline? Madeline, did you want to come back again?
No, dim diolch. Thank you very much.
Diolch. Dr. Plummer, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few points. I mean, I think, you know, again, to commend the team, because it is, as we know, very uncertain and challenging times. And I don't think we can continue to deliver to what are existing service levels, and we're going to have to continue to be agile in the way we go forward. We should also be recognising the political change that we're likely to get with the forthcoming Senedd elections, of the increase in Senedd size, let alone the changes in colour that may arise, who knows. And given that such a significant proportion of our costs are inevitably staffing, and we've of course done a very thorough pay and grading review, I just feel slightly uneasy with the assumption of a 2% on salaries, which we have flagged here may be an underestimate, because that, you know, a move of just a bit, a 0.1, starts to get, so that just is a bit of a concern to me. I'm not suggesting it's easy to square that, but I'd flag that as a question. And then the question about the additional planning fee income, which is anticipated. Do we have a timeline on that, Sarah? Do we even know what it's going to land with? So that was the sort of question there. And just one final aside, what on earth is a Porthgyn hopper?
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to Sarah first to ask answer that first question?
Yeah, I was at a meeting of the Planning Officers Society Wales last week where we had an updated briefing from Welsh Government officials. They advised that the timeline for an increase in planning fees is now for implementation in November. There's been a slight delay because of their legal team being involved in other work, but they anticipate that it will be implemented in November. There are still conversations happening with Welsh ministers around the feedback to the consultation, but they indicated that they had listened very closely to feedback from local planning authorities, including ourselves, and that they understood that the concern around taking 3 years to get to full cost recovery for householder applications, and that there was likely to be a move on that particular element to introduce it in November as an immediate change. And those of you who have been looking over the border will note that English LPAs are moving, I think, in the next week or so to £580 for a householder application. So we would, if we moved in November, we'd be aligned with England, which would be very helpful. There was still some uncertainty about other aspects of the consultation, and we're waiting to see, particularly on retrospective applications, what happens there. We don't have a clear steer from officers yet as to that.
Thank you. And who's going to answer the hoppers question, please?
It's already in the chat. Thank you.
Oh, good. Okay. Perhaps somebody might like to do it publicly. Is that possible, please, so that everybody's aware of that who may not be able to access the chat?
Yeah, a very ill-informed description, but Porthcawn used to be industrial works there, and the granite hoppers are part of that structure that we maintain as part of the harbour infrastructure. I'm sure Andrew Musker will give you a much better answer if he was here, but that's a short one.
That's fine. Thank you very much. Good. Thank you. Dr. Heath Davis, please.
Okay, diolch Gadeirydd a diolch Catrin am y
Yes,
adroddiad.
thank you, Chair, and thank you, Catrin, for the report. And it's been wonderfully written. It's very clear and of a high quality. Thank you, Catrin. On the question of reserves, and you asked specifically whether we are happy, and I think we are. I think that's sensible. And just to keep a healthy reserve for things that we may know about, as Rosie Plummer spoken about, some costs that we may not know. So I do think that we need to keep a certain reserve. I was going to ask a question about the obligations of presenting a budget with deficit to the Welsh Government, a deficit of 100,000. Will they come back to us and ask us to do something else? Because it's not a balanced budget, is it? So I just wanted to ask whether there are any further steps to be taken, because we will be presenting a deficit budget to them. So that's my first question. Do you want to take that one first? Yes, I think the way it's shown, it may not be clear. Ultimately, the general funds will pick up the deficit. So then you will effectively have a balanced budget. There we are. Okay, so they won't come back to us on that then. No, they won't. Not as far as where we have general reserves, so that's fine. There we are. Thank you, Catrin. I just wanted to ask about the implications. And then secondly, I just wanted to ask the point about the number of staff. That table was really interesting. I think we are back to figures which are slightly higher than what we had in 2010. So I've come to the end of my time as a member, but for me, I think it's something that we need to keep an eye on. I know our work is growing, but I think it's important to look at this and that we have a sustainable and affordable plan in the longer term. So I think we need to keep an eye on staff and further recruitment according to our affordability. And also on the point of capital, and to build on Madeline's point possibly, rather than looking at historic projects, even though I do understand your point, Catrin, we have to finish what we've already begun, I agree. But in future, if we're doing capital works, I would tend to think that we should do them if they will generate income or if they will decrease our costs. rather than the projects that we would like to do. So perhaps we'll have to prioritize things, invest to saves, that sort of thing. So what can we do? So there is a project to do with our castle, which will help us to bring our costs down and increase our income. So to prioritize things. And then as a result of that, I think it's really important, 892, and we need the papers that shows our plan in terms of how we're going to get back into the black, into the more midterm. So I'm happy to agree to today's budget. And I think it's extremely important that we plan for the future so that we don't run out of reserves. And that's it. Thank you.
Diolch, Rachel. Catrin or Tegrin, who wanted to come in first? And Catrin, I'll put you first, please.
Yeah, sorry. Just to come back to Rosetta. I did do some scenario planning around obviously the wages, because obviously 2% it may well be low given that the inflation seems to be on the rise again, or certainly not going to come down much lower. And basically, if we had if the settlement was another 2%, which is 4%, that would add about 130,000 to our deficit. But we do have some good news, because when this paper was actually written, just as this was finished, we did have an announcement from Welsh Government that they would be giving us some additional funding. Obviously, whereas it's very welcome, it doesn't help in terms of planning, a short-term planning. We really do need a long-term settlement so that we can plan our resources and plan better, so that we can deliver an ambitious park management plan. But anyway, I'm sure Tegrin will talk more about the additional settlement.
Thank you for coming back on that, Catrin.
Thanks, Catrin. Over to you, Tegrin. Sorry, Maureen, I'll come to you in a minute. Apologies for you.
Yeah, to
be quite honest with you, there is a regular conversation between officers and officers in Welsh Government. And I know that the situation is difficult. But when we look at how much money they give us as a whole, it corresponds fine with what we've received historically. But the problem, of course, it is not consolidated in the budget. So to a certain extent, we are turning the clock back at the beginning of every year, and they are aware of this. And I would say that we are making some development there, as we've had a 5% increase this year, and that's the first increase that we've had for a number of years. So I think that the message is beginning to make its way through, and that can be compared to the 9% of a cut in England. Not that that has any effect on whichever side of the offers dike you are. But I think it's worth noting that we have a workshop at the beginning of next week, a week today actually, and we can look at how can we put proposals forward which do not have a direct impact on staff and staff employment, and to look at that as a starting point. And I totally agree, and I often question myself about the number of staff we have. So I do think that we'll have to go through 2 or 3 rounds of activity to make sure that we tighten up. And unfortunately, it will be inevitable that it will have some impact on staff in order to have a balanced budget.
Tegrin. Rachel, did you want to come back before I go to Maureen?
No, that's fine. I think the point to be made on the staff numbers, not letting them escalate further then, isn't it, in the situation we're in? Yeah, diolch.
Yeah, thank you for raising that. It was something I was going to raise as well, but that's great. Over to you, Councillor Maureen Bowen. Apologies for, or thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Chair. No problem. My question is about reserves. On page 127, under General Fund, it says, a General Fund can be used to smooth the impact of significant pressures, offset the budget requirement for a finite period if necessary, or held in case of unexpected events or emergencies. Do we have a timescale for that, please? because other organisations I've been involved with usually say that covers us for 3 months, 6 months, whatever. Is that the same with us, please?
Thank you, Maureen. Who'd like to answer that, Catherine?
Yes, the calculation is based on 3 months worth of salary costs. Yeah, so that's how the figure is calculated.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mike James, please.
Diolch Cadeirydd, thank you very much. Cwestiwn sydd gyda fi felly.
Thank you, Chair. The question I have for Catherine or Sarah, offshore planning.
Falle bydd e'n dod trwyddo a bydd
It may come through,
cynllun mawr fydd hynny.
and they may be large developments. If it comes in during this particular year, and I'm just thinking of our officers, our planning officers, then specifically their time, and will there be payment for the work which they will have to do, because they're already under significant pressure. But also I was thinking, will we receive money to do all of the work? Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Sarah, please.
Yes, thank you, Councillor James. As you will see on the agenda later on today, we're already getting offshore wind proposals that are coming forwards that may have an impact on the national park. So at the moment, when we do those assessments, we don't get any fee for those. We're effectively a consultee. So all of the work that Gail and other colleagues have put into that response at the moment is unfunded effectively. We have made representations as part of RTPI Cymru on the Infrastructure Wales Bill, which is looking at a single consenting regime, suggesting that there is a need for the fee mechanism to consider the impacts on organisations such as the National Park, and we hope that that will be considered going forwards. But at the moment, that's not in place. But we are getting, in some cases, using the non-statutory pre-app scheme that we put in place last April, we are getting some developers engaging with us through that process and paying a fee, which is really helpful. So they can see the advantage in agreeing, for example, viewpoints and parameters for landscape visual impact assessment with us up front. So we are getting one or two that are considering going through that route, which is very helpful.
Thank you, Sarah. All right, Mike.
Diolch yn fawr. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you. Do I have any more comments or questions relating to this agenda item? There's two lots of recommendations on. There's one on page 123 and 126. I'm going to take them separately. So do I have a proposer if I have no further questions? Thank you. Rachel, are you proposing? Is that a yes, or did you? No? Sorry, Councillor Mike James.
Yeah, happy to propose.
Thank you, thank you. Wasn't sure whether you had another question before then. So, so Rachel's proposing, and Councillor Mike James, I presume you were seconding. Is that correct? Brilliant. So this is the recommendations on page 123, which is to approve in principle the draft budget 25-26, subject to noting the National Park Grant Levy estimate has yet to be confirmed, and to note the financial forecasts for 25-26 to 28-29. So I've had a proposer from Rachel, a seconder from Mike James. All those in favour, please raise your hands. I think that's unanimous, thank you. Is there anybody against? Oh, take mine down. Anybody, any abstentions? No. Great, thank you very much. I'll then take you on to page 126. Are there any further questions relating to this recommendation, please? No. Do I have a proposer, please? Dr. Plummer, thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Maureen Bowen, thank you. And so this is to adopt the prudential indicators as presented, approve the financial reserve and the investment strategy and treasury management policies for 25-26. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. Is there anybody against? I thought there were 50. I think that's unanimous, isn't it? Yeah, thank you. Thank you, members. I think we'll have a short break now, if that's all right. Say 10 minutes, 11:25, I believe now. So if we come back at 25 to 12, I will see you then. Thank you.
Hi, Di.
Hello, is everybody
Hi.
back?
No, not
Not
quite.
quite.
My connectivity has gone really low.
Okay.
Could I turn my camera off, please? But if
Yes,
I'm
of course. Yes, of
if
course.
I'm speaking, then I'll turn it on.
That's great. It's much better to speak to people with faces rather than a blob.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to make you aware, Chair, that we are still streaming. As everyone's been muted, it's fine just to still be going, just to be mindful of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is everybody back now? Yes. Are we all back? Georgia, can you help me with that? Or the majority of us back?
Unfortunately, I won't be able to tell until we have a few more cameras on, I'm afraid.
That's all right. Thank you.
Just a quick message, Di. Tim has let me know he's had to pop out. So if he's not here to carry on, and he'll join as soon as he's back.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. First of all, are we live now? Thank you. First of all, I'd just like to make a quick apology to Catherine and to Richard Griffiths. Apologies, Catherine, I didn't thank you before I signed off. So thank you for all your hard work, and to Richard as well. And apologies for my omission. I know how getting a budget together is quite stressful, and it's more difficult in these financial difficult times. So thank you. Hopefully you can breathe a little bit easier now. Good. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you're suitably recharged, and we will go straight to report number 925, which is the asset management strategy and policy item, and this is to approve the asset management policy and strategy. And I'm going to ask the head of decarbonisation, Jess Morgan, to present. Over to you, Jess. Thank you.
Diolch and bore da, everyone. In your papers, you'll have the covering paper and the asset management policy and the asset management strategy. The policy remains mostly unchanged and provides a framework for managing the authority's estate, ensuring that only necessary assets are retained within the policy statement. That's what it says. The asset management strategy, however, is a new document which introduces a structured, strategic approach to managing our assets effectively. Effective asset management is essential for achieving our wellbeing objectives and ensuring that resources are not wasted, linking back to comments that were just made earlier around capital investment and value for money. The strategy aligns with our corporate and resource plan, again linking to the earlier point around the partnership plan and our corporate plan, and focuses on conservation, climate, connection and communities. Staff, the asset management group and members have been consulted on both documents that you have before you, and an action plan for the implementation of the strategy is being developed and will be delivered with existing staff resources. Without a strategy, there are risks of poor decision making, financial inefficiencies and potentially reputational damage. It's recommended that members approve both the asset management policy and the asset management strategy today. Thank you.
Diolch, Jess, very much appreciated. Members, any comments, please, or questions for Jess? No? Goodness, you've obviously done an exceptional job. Well done.
I've got my hand up, Chair.
Oh, I haven't seen that. Hang on. Oh, yes, thank you. Dr. Plummer, apologies.
Thank you very much, Chair. Sorry, just a quick one. Can I just say again, I really welcome the new clear style and tone of the policies and strategy documents that we're getting together. So thanks again to all the exec, but to Jess and the team. Just a general question about policies and good governance, really. I found myself musing about where do I get all the policies, and I couldn't for the life of me work out whether I would, as a member, be able to get at all the authorities' policies somewhere in a cohesive lump. So, is there a list of them on SharePoint or something? So that's a question I'll raise more generally for you. But I think on the asset management strategy, I thought the map was really useful. And I just wondered whether it could be perhaps have some numbered spots and a key, so we had a bit more idea of what our assets were. But all in all, very happy to approve or to propose the recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rosie. Do I have a seconder, please? Oh, Rachel?
Yeah, I didn't put my hand up for that, but I'm happy to do that. That's fine. I just had a couple of questions and comments, if you don't mind, but happy to second, as I say. So yeah, echoing Rosie's points, it's well written. It's a good read. It's interesting, and just reflecting, I'm pretty sure we had an action, Rosie, in audit committee some time ago. Not so much of the full list, but certainly an action about outstanding policies, which would have covered all of these when they were due by. And I know I've said as chair before, we need to look at the review period as well, because we've got to the backlog. So, you know, is it sensible to have a review period of 3 years, 5 years, 10 years or whatever, but we can stick to it. So I think that kind of list with that sort of schedule would be useful. Yeah, so just to echo that. So on this one, Jess, sorry to delay that a sec, for general point. Yeah, happy with it, reads really well, I think. The couple of questions for me was, I like the quick reference bullets you had on the very first page of our paper. They are not actually in the strategy or the policy document itself. So I think it's where you've got the objectives. I wondered whether you could put them there. It's point 6, asset management objectives, and that's whether they'll be there. But of course, the objectives there are a slightly different thing on your heading 6 that makes sense. But actually, I do like that list. So something to muse over. But you've said important things in that introduction to the paper, I think, which would help if we've got to make some decisions in the future around priorities and things, you know. So if they could be included or a version of in the right place, that'd be good. And perhaps written by that objectives section would be good. The other thought I had was when we get into the orange headings, number 4. So we're at number 7, steps to achieving the objectives, and then there's a couple of important points. Number 3 of that one, sorry to confuse, number 3, a portfolio that is financially sustainable within the likely future resources. And that really made me think. And I thought, would this strategy, in all honesty, help us if we really had those tricky decisions to make? So, and it went back to the point. So if we really had to make sure they were net zero, you know, they weren't costing us in energy, would that be helpful? Would we prioritize the operational assets, or would we prioritize the visitor locations, the castle, the Oriel Parks, etc.? So yeah, I mused over that one. I think it was it needed to be more holistic almost. So in the round, what is it telling us, and how would we prioritize the decision making? So I don't know if it got to the heart of some of our true difficulties of managing all our assets and which ones we would prioritize. So that was the bit I was left with 3. But would it actually help us answer those really knotty questions? And I think that's it. Thank you, Jess. I don't know if you want to come back or not, or whether they are a bit more tricky, but those were my musings.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rachel. Do you want to come back?
Yes, please. Yeah, no, one of the first things that we were planning on doing actually next week I'm looking at is as a scoring matrix, because obviously our assets will provide different things. So they'll be operational, there'll be biodiversity benefits, all of that. So I haven't got an answer and that will be something that members will have to look at if we are looking at acquisitions or disposals of assets. But a scoring matrix is going to be drafted up and developed and worked with our asset management group. But yeah, you're right, that is the tricky thing, and what you weigh, what gives more weight than others. But that's a piece of work that I'm tasked with starting on next week. So that's that thing about the scoring matrix and measuring what assets and why we have them and what they deliver on. Because historically we've picked up assets, for want of a better word, for various different reasons, and whether that's still important, why we hold them, it's worth reviewing and looking at. And then the other thing I was just going to mention, just about policies. I know Maya has a comprehensive list of all the policies with a record of when. Some will need to be reviewed sooner than others. So there is a, it's not a carte blanche, all in 3 years, all in 5 years or whatever. So I do know she has that comprehensive list, because you'll know there's a number of policies I've brought to you over the last sort of 18 months. And there is a section for members on SharePoint. I don't know yet. I haven't found out what policies are in that so that you can have a look at, but I will find out about that, Rosie, and I can ask Caroline to share that with you. Obviously some policies will be on our website, privacy policies and such like. Yeah, I think that was everything.
Thank you. Yes, if you mind me to come back on the scoring thing, I think that's going to be a good addition, and it lends me then to the next question. You can't just look at each of the assets in silos, because when it really comes to the crunch, I won't name one, but if you were saying, oh, that's really expensive, it doesn't stand up on its own 2 feet, and you look at your scoring system, you'd still say, but that is, really contributing in the round over here. So I think it will come down to that eventually, of balancing the books, isn't it? There is like a cash cow over here that is helping us cope with a loss leader over here, something to use the business words. So I think getting to that and understanding the whole portfolio, how it works holistically, is really hard, but really crucial, isn't it?
And the other element, if I just say, is and you talked about staff costs, is that every asset has a cost to it, and whether that's not a financial outgoing, there is management of it, whether it's a small scale kind of visit once a year or twice a year. So that will also be taken into account when looking at those assets, as well as what they provide in terms of for our park purposes.
Thank you. All right, Rachel. Great. Thank you. Dr. Plummer, please.
Sorry, I think I know Julie James isn't able to be here today, but I'm aware she did just ask the question as to why this asset management policy, which mentions assets, only includes our buildings, etc. Clearly, our mobile assets, our equipment, our cars, our IT, etc., is managed separately and is covered by a different policy. That's right, isn't it, Jess?
Yeah, I can confirm that's correct. Yeah, so
just think for the record, so for clarity for everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, we have finance fixed assets that cover things like our fleet and our IT machinery and equipment. So yes, I did check that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jess. Thank you, Rosie. Does anybody else have any more comments? We have a proposer with Rosie. I think, Rachel, did you second? Yep. Thank you. No more comments. Thank you very much, Jess. And what page are we on? Hang on, 137, I think it is, isn't it? Sorry. Trying to do too many things at once here. So the recommendation is to approve the asset management policy and approve the asset management strategy. So those all in favour, please put your hands up. I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much, Jess. Thank you. Thank you, members. We will move on to the next item, which is the enforcement policy, report number 1025, to adopt the updated policy in relation to planning enforcement and compliance. And this will be taken by the Director of Place and Engagement, which is Sarah Morris. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The paper before members presents an updated Pembrokeshire Coast National Park Authority enforcement protocol and policy. The original version was adopted in June 2011, and an updated version is required to support the National Park Management Partnership themes and authorities' wellbeing objectives. The Planning and Enforcement and Compliance Policy document is a helpful tool in providing clear guidance to complainants and landowners or developers about the processes and policies that apply to investigations of alleged planning breaches. In line with the National Park Management Plan, the Planning and Enforcement and Compliance Policy will ensure that the conserving and enhancing of natural beauty and wildlife is maintained through appropriate planning. The correct management of planning through appropriate enforcement within the National Park will ensure that communities benefit from a protected landscape that people can live in, work and enjoy. One of the changes to the policy is the introduction of a specific reference to the Human Rights Act and the authority's duties under equalities legislation. The policy now notes that the authority will make appropriate adjustments where necessary in the course of investigating complaints where it is made aware of a disability or illness affecting an individual who is responsible for an alleged planning breach, including, for example, having friends or advocates present for meetings or communicating only with a planning agent. However, the mere fact of a disability or illness will not preclude the authority undertaking an investigation or, if necessary, undertaking enforcement action where required. Where the authority is aware that enforcement action may result in an individual becoming homeless, it will consider the implications of this in timescales for enforcement notices to enable individuals to make other arrangements. Other changes within the policy include reflecting updated enforcement tools, including, for example, enforcement warning notices. In conclusion, members are requested to endorse the recommendation to adopt the updated policy to ensure effective service delivery.
Thank you, Sarah. Dr. Plummer, do you have a comment or a question, please?
Yeah, first of all, again, thank you. It's really important that we keep our policies up to date, and it is a bit, scary when we find them sort of so behind the curve. Can I just say, I think it's really important that we have a good enforcement policy, and thanks to Sarah for bringing this forward, because it's again another big piece of work. I note that the recommendation is to adopt, but I know I've sent through some suggestions for minor amendments, not material. So I wonder, Chair, whether we could just tweak that recommendation to adopt, subject to delegating to officers corrections amendments, and that just helps Sarah, I think. Thank you, and again, happy to propose.
Thank you, Rosie. Yes, happy to enable that. Dr. Madeline Harwood, please.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Thank you very much, Sarah and the team. And I'd just like to comment about how useful it was to have a workshop on this issue recently. The two officers presented not only talked about the requirements and need for the updated policy, which was clear and has covered all the more recent changes, as well as you've explained eloquently, Sarah, but also gave us then one of the enforcement team gave us some really good feel for where there are problems and issues, including with some of the areas that we're going to be talking about today, such as the Article 4 and so on. So I think the way that the development of this has gone is really exemplary. It's been very, very helpful for members to understand, and as already has been said by Rosie, I think it's really clear and very helpful and appropriate. I'd be delighted to second. Thank you.
Thank you, Madeline. Really insightful in the workshops, isn't it? And hopefully will enable us to make the really right decisions for the National Park Authority. Sarah, please.
Yeah, I should have said in my introductory comments that I must thank a number of members of the team who've put a lot of work into this document, in particular Mike Higgins, but also the enforcement team. It's a very small team, 2 officers and 1 conservation and enforcement assistant, but they work incredibly hard and they've inputted into this document's development as well.
Thank you, and I'm sure we say this, oh gosh, what's my words? On behalf of all of the members, we'd echo that. So thank you. I've had a proposer and a seconder. Rosie has proposed with the amends, and Madeline has seconded. Do I have any other further comments before I go to the vote then? No. Okay, all those in favour, please raise your virtual hand. I think that's everybody, because I think somebody's left. Is that correct? Is there anybody against? I think I'm... I think that's unanimous. I still got my hand up. No. Gosh, sorry, my iPad's extremely slow today, so apologies for the delay. Okay, thank you. We will move swiftly on. Thank you, Sarah and the team, much appreciated. We will move on to report number 11, Cresswell Quay Management Plan, and Emma Gladstone, our Strategic Policy Manager, will be taking this report. Over to you, Emma, please.
Yeah, diolch Chair and Board of Directors members. So firstly, I'd like to extend my thanks to Linda Jones from BAB Architects, who has prepared the draft conservation area appraisal and management plan for Cresswell Quay. And this is because the authority's buildings conservation officer lives in Cresswell Quay. So we are seeking approval then to undertake public consultation on the draft document. So members may recall that agreement was given in October 2024 to designate a conservation area at Cresswell Quay. And this followed consultation with the community and the Community Council last summer, and we also held engagement events with the community and the Community Council. So this designation does recognise the special architectural and historic interest of the village and will ensure that future development either preserves or enhances the character and appearance of the conservation area. So the appraisal and management plan has been prepared and it details then the history of the area. It identifies important buildings and particular features of buildings that are important to preserve, important green and open spaces and features that are special to the character and appearance of the area. And it provides guidance on new development and how to look after and protect what is special then to the conservation area. The guidance is proposed to be adopted as supplementary planning guidance following the consultation and will then form a material consideration, planning consideration for the positive management of the conservation area. So the proposal is now to conduct a consultation on the draft appraisal and management plan for a period of 8 weeks. And written notification will be given to all properties within the conservation area and to key stakeholders, including the Community Council. Officers will also hold an online engagement event to present the plan and provide an opportunity for any questions and answers. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Emma. Can I just ask if the surrounding community councils will also get notification?
Yes, as we undertook last summer, I think there were 3 community councils, wasn't there, that we engaged with, and yet we will do the same for this consultation.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your work. Councillor Michelle Wiggins, please.
Oh, sorry, it's just a personal declaration. I used to work with Linda Jones back in 2019. It's a long time ago, but just for the record, thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. There we are. There. Do I have any comments or questions? Dr. Madeline Harvard, please.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Thank you, Emma, and again, thank you to not only the team, but particularly the consultant here who's done a great job. I'm just very aware that this may seem to interested parties and even disinterested ones perhaps, although I'm sure that everybody is very interested in it, that there's an awful lot of consultation here. This has come to us on 3 occasions, I know, for completely different aspects of the process. But I just think we need to be very aware when we are asking the Community Council and individuals in the area to comment that this is the next stage of the process. It is, you know, and what it means for them, what this actually having the management plan and making it into a material consideration in our planning system means for them, because it they may feel that they've already commented, you know, on the first consultation that came out and not really appreciate how important this part is, because this actually will create supplementary planning guidance. So it's not it's not a comment on the paperwork in front of us, but it is again more of a comment on the comms and how this is dealt with and people and explained to people, because the last thing that we want is for people not to engage with this aspect and then feel that they weren't really didn't really realise that this meant X when they wanted to make an application in the future. So just a plea for clarity, because a lot of people have been asked for comments on a number of different aspects of this in the past. So clarity on this final hurdle or achievement perhaps is a much better description, because I think it is a great achievement, would be appreciated, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Madeline. Does anybody want to come back and any comments? Any officer?
No, just yeah, thank you. Note those comments, and we'll make that clear. In the letter that we send out, people can suffer with a bit of consultation fatigue, and really make it clear, isn't it? What the purpose of this particular consultation is, how important it is, and obviously we've got that engagement event as well for further clarity and questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments, members, please? No. Do I have a proposer? Quite happy to propose this. So, Councillor Thomas, are you seconding or proposing? Seconding.
I can propose or second. I'm not sure if somebody else is in, but I'm happy to propose.
I was happy to propose, and Vanessa to second. Thank you very much. So this is to approve the draft Cresswell Quay Conservation Area Appraisal and Management Plan for consultation. Thank you. All those in favour, please raise your hands, unless there's no further comments. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Emma. And I think it's you again, isn't it, for the next item, which is the LDP2 review report, which starts on page 327. So back over to you, please.
Yeah, diolch, Chair. And I'd like to extend my thanks to all the strategic policy team for the work that they've done on undertaking the review of the adopted Local Development Plan 2 and the documents before members today. So we held a workshop for members on the review of the adopted Local Development Plan 2 back in November last year, and members gave approval then in December to undertake consultation on a draft review report. So officers have conducted a 6-week consultation, and we received responses from 10 range of consultees, so members of the public, key stakeholders, organisations and community councils. And the comments received are summarised in a report of consultation, and an officer response to each issue has been provided. So the review report contains track changes, so members can see then what changes have been made to the report, and a list of issues is also provided in the MPA report. So these are considered to be relatively minor changes that add further clarity on certain issues, which include clarity on flood risk, reference to small self-build sites, and taking account of housing requirements for older people, just to name a few. The review report itself concludes that a full revision to the adopted Local Development Plan 2 is required, and this requires officers then to prepare a full replacement local development plan, which would take approximately 3.5 years. So this full revision procedure process offers scope and flexibility to address a range of issues identified in the review, which would impact on the plan's strategy. So includes the climate and nature emergencies, conformity with Future Wales, the National Development Plan, and need to consider a suitable strategy to address affordable housing need, and consider suitable policies to address second homes and short-term lets, and take account of a range of social, economic and environmental capacities. A full list is provided in the conclusion chapter of the review report. Officers do consider that a short form revision procedure would prevent a significant risk of legal challenge. And just to point out that no specific representations were made or received in relation to the conclusion of the report, which recommends this full replacement plan is prepared. So officers are now seeking agreement to submit the review report to Welsh Government, and then officers would undertake preparation of a delivery agreement for a replacement Local Development Plan 3, which would set out the timetable and community involvement scheme for preparation of the replacement plan. And this would be presented to members at a later date in the next coming months. It is important to note, though, that LDP2, the adopted development plan, would remain in place until adopted by a replacement local development plan 3, which would be approximately 3.5 years down the line. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Emma. I'm not quite sure on hands raised here. I'm not sure whether my iPad is being a bit slow, but I've got Sarah Hoss with a hand raised. Is that a... There we are. Thank you. Councillor Bethan Price? No, it's just showing up as your hand is up on the screen, but not in the list. So apologies if I'm getting you wrong. Councillor Mike James? Okay.
Hello.
Hello, have you got your hand up, Mike, or is my...
No.
I think it's...
No.
No, that's fine. And Rosie, you got a comment? No, sorry about that. I don't know why. I've got yellow boxes, but nobody in the list, so not quite sure what's going on here. Does anybody have any comments or questions? If not, do I have a proposer to note the report and approve the review report? So I have Councillor Mike James.
Oh, I got two little questions to ask. That's all. Sorry.
Okay, that's all right. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Diolch yn fawr. Okay. Thank you, Emma. Great report. Thank you very much. I got two things. On page 74, number 45, farm diversification. Because I did well then, yeah. Policy is performing as intended, but will require review. Have you got a little update on that? Just a comment, please, Emma.
So what we do when we look at the review report is to sort of look at what policies are performing well in the adopted local development plan and which might require revision going forward. So at this point in time, we've identified that particular policy is fit for its purpose and we haven't identified any issues with it, but there may be a requirement just to tweak it slightly as we undertake the revision process. So there's no identified particular issues with that policy at present, but as we go through the process, there might be some minor changes made to it.
Okay. Will we have information about that then as you go forward, or?
Yes, you'll be hearing lots and lots about the Local Development Plan 3 as we go forward. There'll be a number of key consultation stages that will be reported to members. So 2 key consultation stages will be firstly on a preferred strategy that will set out the spatial strategy of the plan and also the numerical strategy, what growth we would seek to deliver over the plan. So that's the preferred strategy consultation, and that would be the first one, and that wouldn't be for sort of 12 or 18 months from now. And then following that, a full deposit local development plan would be presented to members prior to consultation, and that will set out all the detailed policies as well then. So, and we'll hold a number of workshops for members as well.
Okay. And my second point, please, Di, is about minerals. I looked at it and I can't find it now. It was that correct me if I'm wrong, please. That there'll be no more mineral within the national park, but that Pembrokeshire County Council have authorised that if they have any, that it'll come under the national park. I put that in a very, very rough way. I'm not in a professional way that you put things, but am I right in saying that? And have you got any more comments on that, please? Diolch yn fawr, Emma. Diolch.
Thank you. So we do work collaboratively with neighbouring authorities on providing a suitable reserve for minerals. There is a presumption against sort of further mineral development in the national park as we are a protected landscape, and we do need to work collaboratively to ensure that there is a suitable reserve available there. So further updates can be given on that, but at present, presumption is against further development in the national park, and it does require collaborative working then to ensure that we meet the need going forward.
Okay, so if I, sorry, Di, for hugging this now, but I do believe there's an application in with oh, Sarah, which quarry has got an application in the north now? And anyway, is that in place? Or shall I talk to you outside the meeting about this?
That might be. Yeah, that might be helpful, Mike, and then you can get into the detail that you need, which you possibly couldn't publicly. So, Sarah, would you like to come back in though on that, any of those points?
Yeah, just to say, obviously there are established working quarries within the national park that have existing permissions. Those will continue to operate and not we're not affecting their permissions. Very happy to have a chat with you, Mike, afterwards about any specific cases that you want to know more about.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Emma, for mapping out the timeline as well for LDP3. It's quite useful for people to understand and start communicating that out there so people can input as and when. Dr. Madeline Harvard, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Emma. Again, huge amount of work going on and facing you in the future. I just wanted to comment about how helpful and how impressed I always am at the way we are responding to comments of consultees. And it's very clear in our paperwork that we're doing that. A lot of people often say, oh, the authorities, any authority actually, ignore what we say. I'm always very confident that we don't, that we take every response very seriously and respond appropriately. And to that end, really, again, it's just repeating almost my comments on the previous item. This is such an important document for the park. It is critical that we get really wide engagement and encourage as many people as possible to engage. And I know that the team have been doing that, and even the responses we've already got show that there is active engagement with a wide range of stakeholders. But it's a plea to members really to make sure, particularly our local members perhaps, to make sure that everybody is aware that this is being undertaken and how they can help develop an input to the future long-term planning strategy for the national park. So thank you, Emma. It's the start, early days of what is a long process. But again, we're one of the few that have already reviewed our LDP, and we will be one of the very few that's on to LDP3, I think, which will just help us be able to show how responsive we are to our communities. Thank you very much indeed. Diolch.
Thank you, Madeline. Rachel, please.
Yeah, thank you, Di. Diolch.
Yes, thank you, Di. I have one point which relates to page 71 of the report. Point 13, which relates to the Welsh language. I agree that it needs to be reviewed, and it said will require review, so I'm happy with that. Just two things I'd like to share, which I think is important, just in case it may not be on your radar. One, which is an important report from the Welsh Language Commissioner for Planners, which mentions how you deal with the Welsh Language Act compared to planning legislation and how to balance the two. So that's a report and important guidance which is already out there. And then the second report, which is very important for you to take a look at, is that the Welsh Government have commissioned a panel or a board of experts to look at Welsh language communities and defining Welsh communities, which then impacts or affects our definition of sensitive or language sensitive areas, the TAN 20. So those are the two things that need to be taken a look of, just in case you don't know about them. Let me know if you need the links. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Madeline, did you want to come back again?
Sorry, just to add that I would be delighted to propose.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Maureen Bowen, thank you. If I have no further questions or comments, I'm going to go straight to the vote, please. So it's to note the report of consultation and approve the review report. So virtual hands, please. Right, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Emma. That's that one done. And now we will move on to report number 1325, the Clear Floating Offshore Wind Energy Response. And I'm going to pass over to the Principal Planning Officer, Strategic Policy, Gail Lister. Over to you, Gail, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Hopefully the majority of you were able to attend the workshop that we put on about 3 weeks ago, I believe, where I took you through the application that is being submitted to PEDU for their determination, and this is our consultation response, and the report is seeking approval to submit the response for submission to PEDU. The deadline is now very, very tight. It's this Friday that we have to have that submission in. So I won't go through too much detail about the actual application because I took you through it at the workshop. But basically 10 wind turbine generators, up to 325.5 metres to tip height each, located approximately 35 kilometres off the coast of South Pembrokeshire. We have, following the workshop, given consideration to the request for landscape enhancements to offset the identified adverse seascape, landscape and visual impacts of the proposed project. However, to be lawful, planning obligations should be necessary to make the development acceptable in planning terms and directly related to the development, and fairly and reasonably related in scale and kind to the development. We have no issues with the onshore elements of the proposal because it's horizontal directional drilling, so there's no direct impacts on the onshore. And we've considered that it's not practical to mitigate the visual impacts at sea from the multiple national park locations. There was also a question raised about community benefits, and that would be for the developer to identify relevant communities and would not be directly related to the planning process. So our recommendation is for the approval to submit this to PEDU with the conclusion that the decision maker is likely to take into account the need to generate renewable energy to meet the very high Welsh Government targets for renewable energy, but recognising that there are going to be adverse landscape, seascape and visual impacts on the national park. So the recommendation is to delegate to the Director of Place and Engagement to finalise a response to PEDU with the Pembrokeshire Coast National Park Authority advising of concerns regarding some of the conclusions made in relation to the adverse impact on the special qualities of the national park and impacts on the landscape and seascape character. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. It was an excellent workshop which really helped us understand this issue and all aspects of it. So those that attended, I'm sure, have had a good understanding of this. So any comments, please? Rosie, please.
Hello. Thank you very much again for the work that you've done on this. Gail, and it's very well evidenced. However, I think just one quick comment, observation in relation to the specifics of the response to PEDU. It's really quite hard to quickly grasp the thrust of our comments, and I just think being assertive in the summary up front of these are our views in summary, as well as the repeat, would just help give it emphasis because it's a long document. So say it meaningfully right up front as well. That would be my only suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosie.
Thank you.
Gwyn, please.
Ie, diolch, Dai. Dwi'n cytuno efo...
Yes, thank you, Di. I agree with the ideology and also the conclusions at the end, especially. But it surprises me that there are so many places where you will be able to see some of this offshore wind farm. And personally, I would be against it because they are completely new to the landscape and the maritime landscape. And I think this is what you're referring to. But there's very little mention of seascapes. You speak about the landscape. So if you go through it again, and just to make sure that the word seascape is also stated clearly in the letter. And then just last question, or one last comment, right at the beginning of the letter, in the introduction, and I'll say this in English.
You say, I write in response to the consultation regarding the, and then it doesn't say anything, under section 36. So under what? Does you follow my thinking? It's there's a word or two missing from that sentence. I write in response to the consultation regarding the made under section. Okay? Maybe you spotted that yourselves anyway.
Well done, Gwyn.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do you have any comments, Gail?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for spotting that. I had completely missed that. The word that's missing is application, and I'll make sure that goes in before that is submitted. With regard to the seascapes, there is a whole section which is of your report is on page 444. So we've got the assessment of the impacts on the seascape landscape character, then the assessment of the impacts on the seascape visual amenity, and then there's a set of tables at the end where we've gone through and identified where we agree or disagree. So with the national park, our landscape character areas and our seascape character areas actually overlap, and we're looking really at the impacts on the views that you'll have from our landscape character areas out to sea, which is why there's perhaps slightly less of an emphasis, or appears to be less of an emphasis. But the tables relating to seascape are on page, bear with me, as I'm just flicking through. So we've got table 4 is the review of the impacts on the seascape and landscape character. Right. And then table 5 is the review of the impacts on the seascape visual amenity, where there's more commentary there on where we agree or disagree with their assessment.
I can see that. Thank you. You missed one word, and I missed two great sections.
We're even then.
Not quite.
Are you happy? You're happier now, Gwyn?
Absolutely, yes.
Good. Thank you. It's always good to raise them, though. Okay. Do we have any more comments or questions for Gail, please? No. Oh, Rachel.
Yeah, thanks, Di. So I came in a bit late there, but I was pondering on how to put it, really. But I suppose it goes back to Rosie's point to really make sure the main message is up front, which is, I kind of concur, but just to add to it, this is very concerning. And I just feel, whether you need that from us to say that, I don't know, but it is really concerning for us as a national park that it's been located here. It will have an impact. And I just am pondering over whether we absolutely need to say that last sentence, that not so much we are really unhappy with this, but we are really concerned. Because you, as Madeline alluded to earlier, actually, you can be a consultee and people's views are taken into account, but to what extent? And your last line is right. We don't think these things can be mitigated in this instance, but I'm just wondering if that hammers it home enough, or whether it does, and therefore we are not in agreement. Just pose it. That's what I would be personally on it. That they are left in no doubt, if you know what I mean. We cannot seem to accommodate this. We've been very fair. We've done a thorough assessment to try and consider it all. But will they still go ahead? Isn't it? And that's what I'm left hanging with. So it is quite concerning for me. And what Gwyn said about the seascape, I wonder who covers that marine element, the migratory birds. I know we start to creep out of our remit in a way, but it's quite impactful out to sea, isn't it, in the marine world and bird life world, etc. So there is a slight gap there for me. I hope other consultees are picking on that in particular. So yeah, I think I'll leave it there, but very concerning.
So you're not wanting to strengthen that last paragraph then, or are you?
I think something really strong up front, which I kind of Rosie said, and Gwyn. But yeah, that end bit for me, if others are in agreement, therefore, we really don't agree with this. That would be my personal view, but open to other members. Where are people on it, I suppose?
You're not wanting to put an amend in that letter then, otherwise we'll go with what we've got in front of us.
Yeah,
with
I
the
would
strengthening.
propose it if you're asking me to do that, Chair, but I was just going to sound out views first, but happy to propose an amendment if that would help, and a big message at the beginning up front.
Yeah, happy. Yeah, I mean, I think probably well, let's see what other members think. So if you're sort of in agreement with Rachel, then please.
Yeah, I'm not. Can somebody explain in plain English what is the recommendation today? What is the parks? What are we actually recommending today? Please, it's because it is very concerning. What's going on?
Okay, let's ask Gail to come in then. Perhaps she can help. Thank you, Gail.
So we are a statutory consultee on this, and there are separate elements to it. So we are only commenting on the application that's been made under the Section 36 Electricity Act, and that's for the onshore and the offshore elements. There's a separate marine licence, and that goes off to the Crown Estate and NRW to decide that bit. Also to reassure Dr. Heath Davis that the sort of ecology side of things will be responded to by RSPB and people who are that is their bread and butter, and they will be commenting on those. So what we are seeking we are seeking approval to submit the response as written to PEDU, who are the decision makers in this, because it's a development of national significance. So it's not determined by local authorities. So that's what we're seeking approval for, is to submit that response to PEDU, who will then make a decision on the application.
All right, Bethan.
Yeah, so if I think Rachel wanted to add something else. So yeah, I think that's a good idea, actually.
Okay, I'm just going to go to Tegrin. Thank you, Gail, for that helpful comment. Tegrin, please.
Yeah, I'll do this in English actually, but I'm just very interested in the link between different elements of this, and I'm sure it's a question possibly for Sarah, Emma, or Gail, really. Early in the meeting, we agreed the new partnership plan. The new partnership plan includes the special qualities of the national park, which has been said is a material planning consideration. I assume it's in relation to our LDP, but actually two of our special qualities are landscapes and seascape, oh no, the wrong one, outstanding coastal scenery and distant uninterrupted views and open horizons, which seems quite pertinent and relevant to this. Now, I'm just wondering, I assume those are in relation to our LDP as opposed to a wider consultation there, but I'm just trying to link two things there. Perhaps there isn't a link.
Thanks, Tegrin. Sarah, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, Tegrin, that I should probably have woken up to before today. But yeah, I think we could mention in the letter that we've just adopted a new partnership plan, and one of the special qualities is that uninterrupted horizon. So we could certainly bring that through in the response.
Thank you. I mean, that's our evidence as well, isn't it? To link back then. Rachel.
Thank you, and happy with responses. And just to add, it would be worth making sure that the responses are coming in from NRW and RSPB. I'm sure they are on this one, but people are busy, they don't always respond. So yeah, I'm sure it will, but to coordinate that is not a bad thing, and cross-reference each other's responses. It's far more joined up, and I think I like Tegra's point about the partnership, so we could show that in action then. It would strengthen it, because it's always a bit siloed otherwise, and we stick to a remit, but it's far broader and impactful, isn't it, than that? So yeah, checking out their responses and referring to them would be a strength now, I think.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mike James, please.
John Cordelia, thank you. I'm just looking at page 442, and this says landscape and visual impact, onshore development. Once they decided where the cable, the onshore cable will go, will it make a difference to make a difference to the landscape and also the visual impact on the national park? Because we don't really know, if I'm saying this correctly, we don't really know which option they're going to take at the moment. Does that make sense, Gail? Diolch yn fawr.
Thanks, Mike. Gail, could you come back, please?
Indeed. Yes, it does make sense, perfect sense. There's actually very, very limited landscape and visual impacts, because the cable will be laid through horizontal directional drilling, so there's no overland impact. The route has been identified in the application documents. There is an onshore substation which is approximately 1.5 kilometres south of the existing Pembroke Power Station, which is where they'll make the grid connection. But very strong landscaping associated with that onshore development, and actually very limited visual impact.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mike?
Well, as long as Gail's happy, then I am more than happy. Yes, diolch yn fawr iawn.
Okay, thank you. I'm mindful that we haven't had an amendment. Does anybody want to suggest any rewording?
Do you want me to come in on that? Because obviously you had a bit of an indication from Beth, and you think we should strengthen it. So happy to do that. I do think there needs to be a message up front, whether somebody wants to come in, that a paragraph. So I'm not going to quote a paragraph on here. That's a bit. We'll delegate that to Sarah, I think, willingly. But I think at the end, just to say that therefore we don't think the mitigation measures are appropriate, comma, therefore we are not in agreement with this proposal.
Gail, please.
Needed to be clear, I think, for me.
There is no mitigation proposed with this.
No, the end of your line. So you're saying, do we get the exact line? It says, and therefore we don't think the mitigations are satisfactory, whatever the last line of your paper is. It's tying that last loose end up. So the wording is, landscape and special qualities would result from the proposed development that cannot be mitigated, and it stops there. End of the letter.
Yeah.
Therefore, we are not in agreement, because that's the whole point of doing an impact assessment. If you can't mitigate or minimise your risks to a level, then you should not go ahead with the decision. So that's the tying of the knot for me.
Okay. Madeline, please.
Thank you, Di. I'm just checking. Making an amendment like that would completely alter what this letter says. Currently, we're expressing concerns, and I think at the workshop we discussed this, and we felt that yes, we had concerns, and that's a comment. If we are making an objection, then that's a completely different response, quite honestly. And so I think we need to be very clear what we are saying. I know the reason that I'm making this point is that I went back to Gail originally and said concern is quite difficult, and we had quite a long discussion both prior to and at the workshop about what we can say as a consultee. If we object, then that sets in train a completely different set of processes. And I think perhaps we just need to be reminded of that before we go down that lane. So perhaps Sarah or Gail, you could just confirm what would happen if we, as a statutory consultee, object to this demonstration renewable project offshore. Thank you.
Thanks, Madeline. Sarah?
Yeah, there's a sort of, it doesn't sound that different, does it? You know, raise concern or object, but there is a different implication. So at the moment, the letter is raising concerns and saying we think there will be impacts on the national park, and those are set out within the letter. So visual impacts, but we also do cross-reference some of the RSPB commentary around, you know, lower kittiwake numbers at the end of the installation and so on. We then leave it to the decision maker really to weigh up both the benefits and those impacts. If we move to objecting, we're saying as a local planning authority and as the National Park Authority that we don't think this development should take place. So that's the difference between the two positions for members.
Thank you, Sarah. I mean, we discussed this quite at length, didn't we, within the workshop?
Yeah. Well,
I suppose the other option would be to possibly on the first sentence is we have concerns is strengthen that if you wanted to. Perhaps that might be grave concerns rather than. But I'll leave that to you, Rachel.
I think it gets to the heart of things, what others have said as well. What are we actually saying? So I'm more on the line of you've got to be clear what you're saying. If you're really that concerned about it, you don't want it to go ahead. So I'm more in the space of object myself.
Okay. Yeah. So you want to add the line about that we object to this proposal?
I think on balance, when you look at the whole argument, we wouldn't be happy for it to go ahead as it is. They can't mitigate. So that's where I am on it. Otherwise, you leave it as concern, but actually it goes ahead, but you're still very concerned, so it doesn't feel resolvable. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you're proposing that, are you, to add that?
Happy to do that then, yes, and then see how it goes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder for that, please, that amendment? Is that you, Beth, then, your agreement? Okay, all right. Okay, how does that affect, if that were to happen then, Sarah, how would that affect Friday's deadline, please? Not that that isn't a reason, I just want to understand.
Yeah, I think we can still make Friday's deadline. It would be changing the conclusion. I don't think we would wish to change any of the sort of the technical content that Gail has prepared. I think that's robust. Gail, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but I would think it would simply be changing the conclusion to an objection.
Yeah, agreed. That would be what would happen. We'd change the conclusion for submission. But yeah, I don't think there's any issue with meeting the deadline for Friday doing that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. I'll bring in Tegrin now, please.
Yeah, just a quick question about the process if we object. We had an experience a number of years ago where we objected to some changes, which was a consultation by the MMOs at the Marine Organisation in England. It was something to do with the changes in the constitution of the port. We objected in partnership with the County Council to the changes. Subsequent discussions happened. The County Council withdrew their objection and they contacted us and saying, if you object, it'll go to a public inquiry. And actually, as a result, we amended our response. You know, is this something similar? And therefore we will start a process. Or is this one where if we object, they are more likely to come to us in order to try and find a solution? And therefore, there are different tactical approaches. Very quick last point there. I think irrespective of this application, we're going to get many of those. So I think we need a conversation in a workshop in order to describe what is our level of acceptance of increasing decarbonisation infrastructure and how we balance that. But that's a side point. But I just wonder if we've got an answer to that process issue.
Thanks, Tegrin. Sarah?
I think that given the scale of this application, that it's likely that there will be either a hearing or inquiry either way, whether or not we object or whether we raise concerns. And I would expect us to be invited to provide evidence and information. Certainly, if we object, we would certainly be asked. But I think even with raising concerns, we might be asked to attend in any case.
Okay, thank you. I'm trying to move this on then. So we've Rachel's proposed an amendment that we the last line is that we object. Bethan's seconded that. So I think we'll go for a vote on that first and foremost. I think I'm getting the impression that everybody's happy with the strengthening the first paragraph, making it I think, yeah, from the nod. So that's fine. So I'm going to go to the vote on the amendment, please. Is everybody clear what you're voting for? Yeah. Okay. All those in favour of the amendment, please raise your hand. Okay, I make that 7. Can somebody confirm that, please? Or 8? Okay, I believe that was 8. Can somebody confirm that for me, please?
I think that's 8, yeah.
Thank you. Those against the amendment, please raise your hand. Okay, I think that's 7. Is there any abstentions then, please? That's Sarah. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So that amendment stays. So that adds. Do I need then to, Caroline or Georgia, do I then need to do a vote for the whole letter, including that?
Sorry.
Is that
Yes.
Yeah.
That,
okay.
yes.
Thanks.
As on the substantive motion then. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. So we're now voting that the letter remains as it is with the sort of bolstering the first paragraph, and so I need a proposer with the amendment. Can I have a proposer, please? Gwyn?
Yes.
You're proposing that, are you? Thank you.
Letter, yeah.
Thank you. Madeline?
Di, yes, I'm happy to second. I do want to pick up on the point that Tegrin made there. This is not the only application for offshore wind that we are going to receive, and I think we really do need to have that more strategic debate. But for us, we shouldn't be picking them off one at a time. I was really conflicted about how to vote there, because I think we do need to have a much more strategic approach rather than be dealing with it. Obviously, this is the very large one come to us first off, but I do think that we need to have that discussion sooner rather than later as well. Thank you.
Yeah, well, we said that at the workshop that we needed to do that, didn't we? So yes, I think that's a very good idea. Thank you. So Gwyn has proposed, Madeline has seconded. All those in favour, please raise your hands. I make that 11. Has everybody voted? the way they want to on that one? Okay. Against, please. One. And any abstentions, please? Oh, that's two, is it? Or okay, right. I'm on abstentions. We've got three. Right, Rachel, is that correct? No. Sorry, my iPad's all over the shop here. I've got you down as against, Rachel. Is that correct?
No, I went for abstention on the second vote. It doesn't logically follow from the first for me, so I'm just going to abstain on the second one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I've got two abstentions. Right, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gail. How will you'll go back and alter that and hopefully get that in for Friday. So thank you very much. Madeline, you've still got your hand up, or is it just my iPad mucking about? No, it's my iPad mucking about. Okay, thank you. Yeah, sorry. Problems today. Right, we will go on to report number 1425, the clarification statement on potential implementation of Article 4, One Direction on camping and caravans. And Sarah Morris, our Director of Place and Engagement, is going to take this item. Over to you, Sarah, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to try to share my screen. Can you let me know if you can see that?
Yes, thank you.
Yep, got it.
Great. Okay. The report in front of members relates to a proposed clarification statement for publication with regards to the potential implementation of an Article 4.1 direction for 28-day camping, caravans and all mobile homes. In December 2024, members approved the making and publicising of an Article 4.1 direction to remove permitted development rights for 28-day rural camping, caravans and all mobile homes across the National Park with non-immediate effect. An Article 4 direction withdraws the planning permissions which the General Permitted Development Order grants for a class of development. Such a direction may be made by a local planning authority or by the Welsh Ministers under Article 4 of that order. The National Park Authority already has some Article 4 directions in place in relation to conservation areas in order to protect the historic environment. In accordance with the requirements of the Town and Country Planning, General Permitted Development, etc. Amendment Wales Order 2022, the authority then publicised the opportunity for formal representations to be made. The opportunity to make formal representations closed on the 21st of February 2025. During this period, the authority has received a number of inquiries about how an Article 4.1 direction would operate. There has also been a degree of inaccurate information circulating on social media. Members of the authority will be asked to take a formal decision on whether to confirm the notice of the Article 4.1 direction, along with a full report of consultations at the May 2025 National Park Authority meeting. However, ahead of this meeting, officers considered that it would be helpful to clarify the parameters that any Article 4.1 direction would operate within. This clarification has also been requested from some businesses operating within the National Park. The headlines from the clarification statement are shown on the slide. Firstly, uses which do not involve development. A number of activities take place around the National Park on a regular basis. Many of these activities do not involve any form of physical development or change of use of land. For example, triathlons and filming. These events do not constitute development and do not operate under permitted development rights. They are therefore not impacted by the potential introduction of an Article 4.1 direction. Secondly, uses which will continue to benefit from 28-day permitted development rights. A range of different uses operate under permitted development rights across the National Park. The proposed Article 4.1 direction is in relation to camping and caravanning only. Uses which do not involve camping and caravanning will be unaffected. Such examples include temporary car parks and temporary saunas. Thirdly, members will recall that the authority considered a range of options in 2024 and chose to exclude exempted certificate sites from the proposed Article 4.1 direction. Organisations which meet certain requirements can apply to Welsh Government for an exemption certificate under the Caravan Sites and Control of Development Act 1960 and the Public Health Act 1936. In England, Scotland and Wales, there are 321 such organisations holding exemption certificates, and certificates are free of charge and valid for up to 5 years. The Article 4.1 direction proposed by the authority would not affect the operation of these exemption certificates. A number of bodies such as the Scouts organisation, the Camping and Caravan Club, the Greener Camping Club and the Caravan Club, to name just a few, operate under this route and would not be affected by the proposed Article 4.1 direction. Exempted uses. Finally, throughout the consultation, the authority has received queries regarding how uses which contain an ancillary element of camping or caravanning will be treated. There has been some concern that uses such as weddings, festivals, filming for television or film where a physical camp is required, and agricultural shows would also need to apply for planning permission, despite not raising some of the issues which have led the authority to consider introducing the Article 4. Having considered these issues carefully and taken advice from the authority's legal advisors, officers propose treating these uses as separate uses if the Article 4.1 direction is implemented, providing that the camping and caravanning use is considered to be ancillary in nature. Should a planning breach be reported, the authority would consider the following types of information: any licences gained for the event, any advertising undertaken, the proportion of the site on which any ancillary tents or caravans are situated, and the length of time the event is taking place for. As set out in the report, members of the authority will be asked to take a formal decision on whether to confirm the notice of the Article 4.1 direction, along with a full report of consultations at the May 2025 National Park Authority meeting. However, ahead of this meeting, officers consider that the clarification statement presented today provides helpful clarity to those seeking to better understand how an Article 4.1 direction would be implemented. The authority is therefore recommended to approve the attached clarification statement for publication. Happy to take any questions. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Sarah. I know this has made a lot of work for you, but I'm really grateful for you to have a relook at this and take on board consultation or consultee responses. And I'm also aware that there was quite a lot of information out there that wasn't as correct as it should have been. Right, I'm going to go to Dr. Madeline Harford, please, first.
Thank you, Chair Diolch. Just to again reiterate how important it is for us to respond, and we have, and I think that this clarification does exactly that. It's very helpful. Perhaps some folk might say, why didn't this come out to start with? Well, I think we didn't realise the range of aspects that people would be concerned about. We had taken it, I suspect, because we've worked through this so carefully and such a lot of work's been done on it. But it is difficult when you're perhaps looking from the outsider, perhaps someone who may feel that they're being going to be affected without realising all the background. So I think having this clarification now will be very, very helpful. Obviously, the consultation is closed, so we've received comments, but we'll be able to look at the responses to those when the report comes in May. And I think it's a very helpful addition to the great amount of work that's gone into this area. Thank you very much. I'd be happy to propose that we accept this statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Madeline. Gwyn, please. Gwyn Jones.
Diolch. I refer particularly to the fourth paragraph in the slides that were shown by Sarah, where she's put out some suggestions of exempted uses. And I wonder, would it be helpful to think more laterally about what potential uses would be? For example, I was just thinking earlier on now, how about religious gatherings? You know, rallies which are held often in the open air, or maybe an event for dog lovers or dog owners, perhaps. Do we need to do that, or is it sufficient just to deal with those when they arise? Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Gwyn. Sarah?
I think we're not trying to produce a definitive list, but what we've indicated is the type of criteria that we would consider. So we would look at, is there a license in place? If it's, I don't know, a festival for dog lovers and everybody's bringing their dogs, has it been advertised? Have tickets been sold? What's the proportion of the event that is being taken up by tents? And we would factor all of those things in. We're a planning breach to be reported to us. What we don't want to do is have campsites use this as a sort of a backdoor route. So we don't want somebody to say, I've got one guitarist at a campsite and therefore it's now a festival. So we've set out some parameters that would allow us to assess for each type of event, you know, whether or not the camping and caravanning is ancillary or whether it's actually just a campsite.
Thank you. All right, Gwyn?
Yes, in fact, Sarah's content with the tools that you have now to make progress, then I'd be very supportive of it anyway. But I was just wondering whether we need to be more prescriptive, and you think not. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Chris Williams, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one. How will the 28 days be monitored or observed? Is there any more detail on that? Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, certainly. So we have a workshop next week, and we'll be exploring in more detail there. But having looked at Gower and the way in which they issue planning permissions, there are two ways that they do it. One is to give permission for a specific period of time. So it might be that somebody wants to operate a campsite through August, and those dates are listed in the description. Or the other option, if campsites want more flexibility and they just want to be able to decide, actually, you know what, the forecast looks really great for that week, so we're going to open then, there is a condition which says, please keep a date, a list of dates that you've opened, and provide that to the LPA for inspection. So those are the two sort of alternative ways that Gower operate with their decision notices.
Can I ask one more question as well, please? Say you've got an area of land that technically could be split up into two. Could they apply for 28 days on a certain parcel of land and then have another parcel which is the other side of the farm or fields or whatever it might be to have another 28 days somewhere else?
We'll have to look at the particular circumstances of each proposal. So we already have some guidelines out there, but we'll look at picking up that point and strengthening that advice within that. So thank you for the question.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Councillor Mike James, please.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Thank you. Just a quick question about toilets, Sarah. How many? Is there a specific amount of toilets per site, or is it per campers or caravans or what have you? I'm sure there's something in place already, but would that fall in place with any application then? Diolch yn fawr. Thank you, Sarah.
Diolch. So at the moment, if you require a license, there are parameters that kick in. They don't apply to the 28-day sites at the moment, but when they apply for planning permission, that would be something that we would look at and consider as part of that, because one of the reasons for looking at introducing this measure is just to have a better understanding of where foul water is going, and to make sure that we are protecting water quality.
All right, Mike. Thank you. And I think, Sarah, you said that if there's anybody who might be watching or has a campsite currently under permitted development rights is unsure of what their whether they need to apply or not, or whatever, they can come to you now, and they don't have to wait till May and get some advice and guidance. Is that correct?
Yes, that's absolutely right. So we've always made it clear that, you know, once introduced, there would be no planning fee. It would be a free application. What we hadn't clarified was that we will also provide free pre-application advice on this, and we're instituting that now. So if people want to come in and have free pre-application advice, they're welcome to make contact, and we're happy to provide that as of now.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bethan-Price, please.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of questions regarding, there's a lot of farmers here, and come the summer, somebody might want to open their field for 28 days. So now they've got to apply. It's free, as you say, it's free. Their concern is if they get turned down, then their 28 days is gone. That's just the big concern.
Thank you. Just be mindful that this isn't coming in this year, it's for 26, so there is quite a bit of time. Did you want to come in, Sarah?
Or just to make that point, really, that it's not coming in for this year. So I've had a couple of people who thought it was. The proposed date for implementation would be January 2026. So it would come in at that point. So it would be for next year. In terms of if an application was refused, there would be an appeal process, as there is, you know, already. But actually, one of the talks that we've got in the workshop next week is from Gower, around how it operates in Gower. And interestingly, talking to some of the officers there, they said that they very, very rarely refuse an application. But what they do sometimes do is negotiate over, for example, the field that is used. So it might be saying, well, actually, do you know what? Don't use that field there. There's an issue with that access. Use this one over here. So there's that negotiation element. So, you know, we would hope very much to take that approach.
Thank you. Councillor Mike James.
Diolch yn fawr. Just looking back at the experience we've had at Poppet Sands, where there was a field used, there were no toilets, so everybody used the toilets at Poppet itself, which caused a lot of, well, the toilets were a mess. So you know, just for you to understand that there can be issues with, well, any campsite that hasn't got a toilet, then they will use something, and Poppet Sands was in a mess, I'm afraid. So
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. So I'm going to bring you back to the recommendation, which is approve the attached clarification statement for publication. I've had Dr. Madeline Harvard as proposed. I was just wondering if anybody else would be prepared to second, please. Councillor Vanessa Thomas, thank you very much. If there are no further questions or comments, I am going to go to the vote. So those in favour, please. I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much, members. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right, I know it's 1 o'clock, but I was hoping we could do the last 2 items. Is everybody happy just to stay on? I'm hoping that they won't take too long, mindful of the workshop after. So we're going to go to report number 1525, and this is the Independent Remuneration Panel for Wales. It's just for noting, and this is to be taken by Caroline Llewellyn, our Democratic Services Manager. Over to you, Caroline, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. The paper before you sets out the determinations of the Independent Remuneration Panel in respect of member remuneration for 2025-2026. As you're aware, the salaries for both ordinary members and those holding senior salaries are set out, are determined. Those holding senior salaries are the chair and deputy chair of the authority and the chair of the Development Management Committee. What members are asked to do today, please, is to determine whether there should be any changes to those posts which are remunerated with a senior salary. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Comments from members, please? I'm quite happy to propose that it remains as it is, unless anybody else has any comments or wants to suggest something different. Councillor Mike James, please.
No, I like to second that, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments then, please? Well, I'll go straight to the vote on that then. Mike James has, no, I've proposed, Councillor Mike James has seconded. All those in favour, please, as the status quo. Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Caroline. And the final agenda item is the independent members of the Standards Committee. And Mike Kent, our monitoring officer, will take this item. Over to you, Mike, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Straightforward request, please, to agree the reappointment of Philip Davis as an independent member of our Standards Committee for a further period of 4 years until the 6th of May 29. He was appointed for a 5-year period in May 2000. The policy of the authority is to allow a further appointment under the 2006 amendment regulations for a further period of 5 years, and that's the request today, to approve that approval, please.
Thank you. Members, do I have any comments? Councillor Tim Evans, is that a legacy hand? Thank you. Councillor Mike James, please. That's all right, Tim, don't worry. Councillor Mike James, please.
Diolch yn fawr. I'd like to propose the paper, please. Thank you.
Recommendation. Thank you.
Yes.
Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Bethan Price? Yeah, second. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. And I understand, thank you, Mike. And I understand that there is another position become available. So if anybody's listening and would like to, or watching and would like to put their names forward, or knows of anybody else who would like to put their names forward or suggest, then please do so. Thank you. The last item is to be taken ideally in private. So I'm going to consider whether the public should be excluded from the meeting during the consideration of the following item due to the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 16 of part 4 of Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972. Do I have a proposer, please? Rachel, thank you. And a seconder is Councillor Mike James. So with that, we will go into private session, but before we do, because we probably won't come back out of it, I'd just like to thank the translator. I think she may have gone, but we're always grateful for her services. Does an excellent job. And thank you to all the officers, Georgia and Caroline, the Democratic Services team, for keeping us on track, and for all the officers and their reports. It's been quite quite lengthy, some of those reports, and we're grateful for the effort and the team effort that goes into that. Thank you. Caroline.
Do you need to vote on that, Chair? You've
gosh,
taken
yes.
a proposer
Sorry.
and a seconder, but you didn't take a vote.
Apologies,
That's all right.
apologies. All those in favour, please raise your virtual hand. That's unanimous. Thank you very much, members. Thank you, Caroline.